My ex-wife cheated on me, then tried to become a copy of my new girlfriend after her lover cheated on her. My ex-wife, she's 48 and I'm 47, left me for a man who was actually married to her best friend from high school. Yeah, great friend. We've been married for 20 years, and I thought we had 2 kids together. Recently, I found out the younger one isn't biologically mine. She's his. My ex knew it from the start and kept it secret all these years. My name is still on the birth certificate, though, and I plan to fight for custody because that little girl is my daughter, not by blood, but by everything else that matters. Apparently, their affair had been going on for a long time. Finding out felt like being punched in the gut. When I asked her to choose him or me, she said him. Why? Because, in her words, he can go for a second round right after sex. That was it. That was her reason. She didn't care that I worked 2 jobs to pay for her college, that I gave up my dream of becoming a musician so she could stay home with the kids. Kids she was cheating on me around. She and the kids were my entire world, but she was never an easy woman to live with. She's bipolar, and life with her was a constant storm of anger and emotional abuse. I used to tell myself she couldn't control it, but later I learned from her own friends that sometimes she hit me simply because she felt like it. My kids saw it all, her screaming, her hitting me, and I just stood there, never fighting back. I hated that they had to witness that. Once, near the end, she snapped because I didn't take the trash out the moment I came home. She grabbed me by the throat and started choking me, right in front of our son. I managed to say, "He's never going to forget this." That's when she finally let go. Looking back, I should have left years earlier, but I stayed. For the kids. I thought I was protecting them. When the truth finally came out, she sat across from her best friend, the wife of the man she'd been sleeping with, and said, "Yes, it's true. No, I'm not sorry." Then she just got up and walked away. She moved out, took the kids, and moved in with him, in an apartment just down the street. Even then, I hoped she'd realize that the grass isn't greener. After all, this guy had cheated on his wife before, several times, and she knew that. I waited that entire first year thinking she'd come back. She even kept a spare key to our place, and I thought maybe she held on to it because she knew she'd return one day. But by the end of that year, things got ugly. Her new boyfriend would show up at the bus stop when I dropped off the kids for school, saying, "I came to say goodbye to my daughter, not yours, mine." I told him, "Then why were you fine letting her raise her for the past 5 years? Why did you let her take my last name? Why was I there for her birth while you were nowhere around?" He nearly hit me. That same night, they both came to my place drunk because he wanted to fight it out. My ex made it public, bragging all over Facebook about her new man. Our mutual friend saw it and immediately reached out to me and his wife. Of course, I took screenshots. She didn't seem to care that she was ruining her image before the divorce was even finalized. But honestly, why would she? By then, I had already confronted her with the paternity test results. For a while, I was destroying myself mentally, wondering what I could have done differently. She accused me of not being there, but how could I be when I was working 2 jobs to just keep us afloat? I'd come home exhausted, the house a mess, walls covered in crayon drawings, blinds ripped down, and she'd still scream at me for not taking the trash out. 16 hours of work a day, and that was her biggest problem. Eventually, I started to believe maybe it really was my fault, that I somehow caused it all. It took time, and my brother, to pull me out of that mindset. He forced me to join his band, said it helped me get my life back. I resisted, but he insisted, and it changed everything. I met some amazing people, started playing again, and eventually began dating a woman. 45, kind, warm, the complete opposite of my ex. For the first time in decades, I was in a relationship where no one yelled at me or threw things at my head. But my ex still had keys to our old place. She'd occasionally stop by to drop off things for the kids. One day, she walked in and found my new girlfriend there. It didn't go well. That evening, she called, furious, demanding to know who the woman was and why she was in our house. I told her calmly, "My personal life stopped being your business the day you left." That didn't sit well with her. Over the past few months, she's gone completely off the rails because of my new relationship. She tried to friend request my girlfriend on Facebook, demanding she accepted so she could see who was around her kids. When my girlfriend refused, she called screaming that I needed to make her accept. My girlfriend took the phone and said, "I don't owe you access to my private life. If it's about the kids, we'll handle it through messages or calls." After that, things got weird. Suddenly, my girlfriend started getting random friend requests from people who were all friends with my ex. Then, my ex began showing up at my house on weekends while I was at work, basically spying. One time, I was on the phone with my girlfriend when she whispered, "Your ex just walked in." When she asked what my ex wanted, the woman said she was just checking how much milk was in the fridge for the kids. My girlfriend told her we had everything under control, and she left. When I got home, I demanded she return the keys since she no longer lived there. She gave me a fake apology, then stole our son's keys to make another copy. Once our lease ended, my girlfriend suggested we move in together, mostly to get away from my ex's insanity. My ex tried to sabotage even that. She called the cops, claiming I was taking her stuff. When the officers asked her to name a single thing that belonged to her, she couldn't. Now, the kids stay with us every other weekend. They've told me their mom doesn't let them talk about what we do together. She doesn't want to hear it. But lately, she's been prying again, asking questions about our time. Honestly, it's just jealousy. We live by the coast, and when the kids are with us, we take walks by the ocean, play games, go to the aquarium. If they come home with prizes, she throws them away. And lately, I've noticed something strange. Whenever she drops the kids off, she looks almost exactly like my girlfriend. Same haircut, same color, same style. It's honestly disturbing.
Everything we do with the kids, she tries to copy the following week. If we go to the beach, she takes them there too. If we visit the zoo, she's suddenly going to the zoo as well. She finds out what we had for dinner, cooks the same thing, and even makes the kids tell her whose food they liked better. Last week, my son told me he wanted to live with us. He said, "Mom's lost her mind." You can bet I'll be using that in court. And just when I thought things couldn't get any crazier, she started sending me explicit photos out of nowhere. My girlfriend was sitting next to me when the pictures came through. I immediately told her I hadn't asked for them, that my ex and I never talked like that, and even offered to let her check my phone. She laughed, looked at the photos, and jokingly asked for my ex's number, saying she'd send some of her own just to show her how it's actually done. I called my ex right away and asked what the hell she was thinking. I told her my girlfriend saw everything and was furious. She claimed she'd sent them to the wrong person. Then my girlfriend chimed in, "Your name is the first alphabetically in his contacts, and your boyfriend's is at the very end. So who exactly were you trying to send them to?" The ex hung up immediately. Honestly, I have no idea what kind of game she's playing anymore. It's pure insanity. And just to clarify, my girlfriend didn't send her anything back. It was just a joke. She said she'd show her how it's done because those photos were laughably bad. Mirror selfies, no shirt, duck lips. My girlfriend just rolled her eyes at the lack of imagination. I don't live in the old apartment anymore. After I took back the keys, she used our son's to make herself a copy and kept breaking in. So I moved in with my girlfriend. The ex doesn't have access now. The kids don't have keys either for that exact reason. I'm currently fighting for custody. It's not easy since I'm not my daughter's biological father, but my name's on the birth certificate, which gives me legal rights. The ex has been prescribed medication, but I doubt she takes it. Whenever the kids come over, I check for bruises just to make sure no one's hurting them. Apparently, she even hit her boyfriend once, and he punched a hole in the wall, warning her that if she tried that again, he'd fight back. Comment: from what you've described, your ex sounds completely unstable, maybe even dangerous. You should talk to a lawyer and see about getting a restraining order. Update 1. Last weekend was my daughter's 6th birthday. It wasn't my scheduled time with the kids, but to my surprise, my ex asked if I wanted to have them for her birthday. Of course I said yes, and she even let me keep them for 2 extra days. I figured she and her boyfriend probably had plans and just wanted some kid-free time. But here's the weird part. This was the first time her boyfriend could have celebrated his own biological daughter's birthday, and instead, he just handed her off to me and my girlfriend. Tell me that's not messed up. Comment. He's a disgusting coward, the kind of man who got another man's wife pregnant. Don't expect him to act like a responsible adult. Keep a record of his neglect. It might help in court. Poor little girl stuck between terrible adults. Update 2. Looks like karma finally caught up to my ex. On Saturday night, I got a furious text from her saying I hope I was happy because I won. I know I shouldn't have replied, but I asked what she was even talking about. She sent a bunch of nonsense and then told me to go ahead and gloat, said I'd probably enjoy it even more since it's my fault something bad happened to her. I asked what exactly she meant, but instead of explaining, she went on a drunken rant about how all men are pigs and can't be trusted. That's when it hit me. She was drunk again, and her boyfriend had cheated on her. I didn't say a word. You can't reason with her when she's like that. I just read the messages, realizing she finally got what she deserved. She left me for my married friend, the same guy who'd already cheated on his wife multiple times. She was affair number 3. When I reminded her that the day she left, she said, "I know what I'm getting into." Well, turns out she didn't. She thought she'd be the one who'd change him. Guess not. When she ran out of insults for me, she turned her attention to my girlfriend, said I was ugly as hell and that I could have any woman, but chose a monster to replace her. My girlfriend is gorgeous, inside and out, and her ex clearly can't stand it. She's been obsessed, copying her looks, stalking her online, trying to provoke jealousy. Then she said something even more ridiculous, claimed I didn't actually love my girlfriend because it's impossible to fall in love with the first woman you sleep with after losing me. We'd been separated for a year before I even met my girlfriend, and it took me a long time to trust again. That trust, she earned it. Then my ex accused me of being with my girlfriend only because I lost my old apartment and was mooching off of her for a place to stay. She said, "You're just pretending to love her because you're homeless." For the record, I had my own place, across the street from my ex. She intentionally rented nearby so I'd have to see her new boyfriend every day. When my lease ended, I moved in with my girlfriend and found work near her place. It was obvious she was trying to start a fight, but I didn't give her the satisfaction. And just when I thought her insults couldn't get dumber, she said, "I'm sorry I wasn't enough for you." God, I wanted to scream. You left me. Did she forget who walked out and replaced who? She dumped me for a married man who cheats constantly. What a prize. Then she went back to insulting my girlfriend, saying we both knew deep down I still wanted her and that my girlfriend couldn't compare. That's when I'd had enough. I told her to contact me when she sobered up and turned off my phone. A few hours later, my girlfriend came home and asked what happened. I handed her my phone and said, "Read it for yourself." She read the whole thing, laughed, gave it back, and said, "Looks like he cheated on her." I nodded, and she was right. She told me my ex's narcissism explodes when she's drunk, and that she's just angry she can't come over and sleep with me out of revenge. Haven't heard from my ex since.
I guess, like always, the next day she reread all her messages, realized what she'd done, and felt like an idiot. Still, I'm sure she's back with him again. She just can't stand being alone. I'm so glad your new girlfriend just laughed it off. She sounds amazing. Definitely a huge upgrade from your ex. Yeah, my girlfriend's incredibly calm and grounded. It's strange, but refreshing. I got so used to my ex's constant explosions that this peaceful vibe still throws me off sometimes. You reap what you sow, man. Karma really knows when to show up. Just keep living your life. Looks like revenge really is a dish best served cold. Your ex sounds either completely toxic or straight up unhinged. Do you think that was a manic episode? I just hope the kids are safe. Can you get full custody?
Yeah, I'm already fighting for custody. And I saved all those messages. Another reason why I didn't snap at her. My ex got cheated on by the very same guy she left me for. No surprise there. 3 days later, they were back together again. She literally has nowhere else to go. Now, she's stuck with him. Since then, apart from signing some divorce papers and the occasional text about the kids, I haven't heard a thing from her. And honestly, thank God for that. Still, I'm sure she's back with him again. She just can't stand being alone. This Halloween, my brother's band got invited to play at a friend's annual event. They've been performing there for years. It's sort of a tradition now. My ex used to come with me before everything blew up, but last year she skipped it. That was around the time I found out she'd been sleeping with her best friend's husband and that my 6-year-old daughter was actually his child. This year, no one invited her, but she showed up anyway with the same guy she cheated on me with. I was furious. The event is strictly 18 plus, and she knew that perfectly well. I'm convinced she brought the kids just to get me kicked out. Security told her she couldn't bring children inside, but she stood there making a scene. Eventually, security came to me and asked if I could escort them out, and she immediately started yelling that I care more about some stupid party than my own kids. My friend, the event organizer, came over and said she could stay for 2 songs. Then she'd have to leave or he'd call the cops. I told him not to give in to her drama, but he said he was only doing it for the kids' sake. The night turned into a disaster. I was on stage most of the time, so I couldn't see what was happening in the crowd, but I heard bits and pieces between sets. Turns out my ex tried to start something with my girlfriend, and it did not end well for her. My girlfriend shut her down instantly and told her to stop using the kids as weapons. A lot of people saw it happen. When I finally got off stage, multiple people came up to me to explain what had gone down. My ex was glaring at my girlfriend from across the room, full of rage. And then, my daughter finished it off. She yelled across the whole hall, "I have 2 dads, my dad and mommy's boyfriend, who's my real dad." The room went silent. My ex turned beet red, hissed, "Thanks for embarrassing me," and stormed out. But my son refused to leave with her. He clung to me, crying, begging to stay. Her boyfriend eventually walked up to my girlfriend and asked if the boy could stay with us. She agreed, and even arranged with my friend to let him hang around until the end of the event. Later, we took him home with us. That entire night was pure hell. I must have apologized 1,000 times to my friend, my girlfriend, even my son, for dragging them into that chaos. I kept messing up songs during the set because my eyes were constantly scanning the crowd, terrified that another fight would break out. I didn't even know she had left the venue without her son until after our performance was over. When I took him home the next evening, she made sure to avoid seeing me. Her boyfriend came out instead, said she knew I'd be there and didn't want to talk about what happened. Then he apologized for everything and started venting about how she behaves. I cut him off, told him I'm not interested in discussing her anymore. Later that night, my son called me saying they were fighting again, screaming so loud the walls were shaking. Apparently, her boyfriend had finally snapped. He told her she still wasn't over me and accused her of being obsessed with my life. According to my son, he yelled something like, "What pisses you off more? That he's moved on and you can't crawl back to him? Or that if you hadn't cheated with me, he probably would have left you for his current girlfriend anyway?" That's what started it all. I could hear them yelling in the background. I asked my son if I needed to come get him, but he said no. I stayed on the phone until things finally quieted down. So yeah, that's where things stand right now. The divorce is still not finalized, but I've moved on. I'm done mourning what I lost. I just want to get my kids out of that mess. And yes, I'm still fighting for custody. She's furious because she can't come back. If you ever hear them screaming like that again while you're on the phone with your son, call 911. Get those kids out immediately. Child Protective Services will at least remove them for the night, and one of those 2 will probably face domestic violence charges. She's getting exactly what she deserves. Cheaters are never truly happy. They live in the fog of their own lies, and when it becomes real life, all the ugliness surfaces. Your ex knows he cheated before and will likely do it again, but she's stuck with him now. She's drowning in the consequences of her own choices. Stay strong and keep making your girlfriend happy. She sounds amazing. He was married when she slept with my wife and at least 2 other women that I know of, and she knew about it. When I confronted her on the day she left, she said, "I know what I'm getting into." She really thought he'd change for her. Yeah, sure. And that's pretty much it. What do you all think? Do you believe cheaters are just lost causes, or can people actually change if the circumstances are right? Personally, I think there are 2 types. Those who cheat because they need the thrill, and those who cheat because they're miserable and stuck in the wrong situation. The first type will always cheat. The second might stop once they finally find someone who fulfills them. Which one's more common? Hard to say, but I'm pretty sure it's the first.
My mother-in-law accused me of cheating because she thinks my newborn is ugly. I'm 28, married to my husband Mike, who's 30. We've been together for 3 years and just recently welcomed our first child, a baby boy we named James. What should have been the happiest moment of our lives turned into a nightmare, all thanks to my mother-in-law, Linda, who's 55. Linda never liked me. From the very first time Mike introduced me to his parents, she made it clear I wasn't good enough for her son. I come from a working-class family, while Mike's family is wealthy. She would constantly make nasty remarks about my career as a nurse, saying Mike deserved someone better than a woman who cleans up after sick people. But Mike and I loved each other, and we married anyway. Mike and I met at a charity event. He had gone there with friends, and I was volunteering as part of my nursing program. We clicked immediately. We both loved helping people, and unlike other men I had dated, Mike was kind and didn't care that I wasn't from a rich background. He admired that I worked hard to become a nurse. Within a year, we were already talking about marriage. That's when I met Linda. Mike had warned me she could be difficult, but I wasn't prepared for just how cruel she really was. At our first dinner together, she looked at me like I was dirt under her shoe. She asked invasive questions about my family, my career, my future, and the more I answered, the sourer her face grew. Afterward, I overheard her telling Mike he could do better, and even suggesting a family friend's daughter who was studying law. Despite her disapproval, Mike proposed, and I said yes. Linda was horrified. She tried to convince Mike to postpone the wedding, saying we were too young. When that failed, she attempted to push a massive, expensive wedding we couldn't afford. Mike refused, and we had the small, intimate wedding we wanted. Linda sulked the entire time. Her wedding speech was a backhanded insult, saying she hoped I could raise myself to their level now that I was part of the family. It was humiliating, but Mike and I refused to let her ruin our day. Married life was good, except for Linda's constant interference. She would show up at our home unannounced, criticize everything, and even tried to set Mike up with other women after we were already married. She'd sneer that our children would be ordinary because of my background. Mike always defended me, which only fueled her hatred. Years later, when we announced I was pregnant, Linda wasn't happy. The only thing she said was she hoped the baby looked like their side of the family. She insisted on attending my doctor's appointments, criticized every decision, and even demanded I move into her house for the last month of pregnancy because she didn't trust Mike to care for me. I refused, and we had a huge argument. The labor was long and grueling, 36 hours, but when James was born, Mike and I were overjoyed. He had a full head of dark hair like his dad. We stayed in the hospital for 2 days, exhausted but happy. Mike called our families to share the news. Linda announced she was coming to help, even though we had asked for time alone. But when we got home, we were stunned. All my belongings, clothes, books, even my nursing uniforms, had been thrown onto the lawn for the neighbors to see. Linda stood in the doorway with a smug grin. Mike told me to stay in the car with James while he confronted her. That's when she screamed, "How dare you bring that woman back here? She's a cheater!" Mike demanded to know what she was talking about, and she pointed at our newborn. "That's not your child. No one in our family has ever had such an ugly baby. She cheated on you and is trying to trap you with another man's kid." I was horrified. Mike was furious, trying to reason with her, but she wouldn't stop. She kept calling me worthless and saying she was protecting her son from a liar. I got out of the car with James in my arms, sobbing, begging her to stop, but she only shouted louder. Finally, Mike snapped. He told Linda to get out of our house. She refused, claiming she was there to help her son and grandson, even though moments earlier she had denied James was Mike's child. Mike walked inside, grabbed her suitcase, and carried it out. "You need to leave," he told her firmly. "You are no longer welcome here." Linda was stunned. She expected him to side with her. Instead, he stood by me. She grabbed her things and stormed off, shouting that she would save Mike and James from me. After she left, Mike and I brought James inside and laid him gently in his crib. Then we sat down, exhausted, but talked. Mike was livid. He couldn't believe his own mother had accused me of cheating and tried to throw me out of my own home. We spent hours dragging my things back inside. Meanwhile, Linda had already spread lies to other family members, and Mike's phone was blowing up with calls and texts. That night, once James was asleep, we decided Linda would no longer be allowed near us or our son until she sincerely apologized and proved she could behave. Mike even said he wouldn't be speaking to her for a long time. The next day, I told my parents what happened, and they were outraged. They offered to come stay with us to help, and we agreed. It's been a week since then. Linda hasn't stopped calling and texting. One minute she apologizes, the next she accuses me all over again. The stress is unbearable, but Mike and I are determined to protect our little family no matter what Linda does. Update: my MIL's behavior got even worse. Mike's father has been trying to mediate, but most of Mike's extended family think we're being too harsh with Linda. They say she was only trying to protect her son and urge us to forgive her for the sake of the family. Others, however, understand why we're angry and support our decision to keep her at a distance until she learns to behave. I feel awful for Mike. This should have been the happiest time of his life, enjoying our newborn son, but instead he's stuck dealing with his toxic mother's drama. I try to support him while also caring for James, but I see how much it weighs on him. I'm furious too. I've done everything I can to be a good wife and now a good mother, but Linda's attacks and attempts to destroy our family are beyond comprehension. Mike even considered taking legal action to get a restraining order, but he worries how the rest of his family might react. We've even talked about moving to another city to escape her, but we love our home and careers. It feels unfair to rebuild our entire lives because of her behavior. Mike tried speaking with his father, hoping he'd finally step in, but he avoided conflict, saying he didn't want to upset Linda. It seems like he spent his whole marriage letting her have her way. Things escalated further. A week ago, Linda showed up at Mike's workplace, crying and shouting that he was stealing her grandson. His coworkers were stunned, and his boss was furious about the scene. Mike had to explain the whole situation. It was humiliating and exhausting. Soon after, Linda started calling my job, spreading lies that I was a bad mother and that James wasn't Mike's child. Thankfully, my manager believed me, but it was humiliating, and I feared it could affect my career. Then Mike's sister Emma, who's 27, initially sided with Linda. She believed the cheating lie and called Mike to berate him for choosing me over his real family. Mike was devastated because he and Emma were always close. But then something unexpected happened. Emma came to our house when Mike wasn't home, saying she wanted to see James for herself. Nervous but hopeful, I let her in. The second she saw James, her entire demeanor changed. She realized how much he resembled Mike and knew instantly that Linda had been lying. Emma broke down, apologized, and promised to talk to the rest of the family. Since then, she's been our strongest ally, openly defending us and calling out Linda's toxic behavior. Naturally, Linda hated this and began spreading rumors that Emma was jealous of me because she's unmarried and childless. It was cruel, and it hurt Emma deeply. But Linda wasn't done. She actually hired a private investigator to follow me, convinced I was still cheating. The PI stalked me to work, to the grocery store, even to my doctor's appointments. It made me feel terrified and degraded. When Mike found out, he was livid. He confronted Linda and warned that if she didn't stop, he'd file a restraining order. Linda cried, insisting she was just trying to protect him, but Mike no longer believed her. The final straw came when Linda tried to take legal action. She went to a lawyer, attempting to get court-ordered visitation rights with James. Thankfully, the lawyer told her she had no case, especially since James is still an infant and she hasn't even formed a relationship with him. All of this stress has taken a toll on me physically. My milk supply dropped, I was losing weight rapidly, and my doctor worried I was developing postpartum depression. Mike insisted I take leave from work to recover. That's when his father finally realized how serious things had become. He came to our home, apologized for not stepping in earlier, and promised to support us in keeping Linda away. Now, 3 months after James's birth, things are finally calming down. Linda calls and texts far less than before. Most of Mike's family has come around to our side. Emma visits regularly and has become an amazing aunt to James. Still, I can't shake the thought, was I wrong to stand my ground and keep Linda away from us? Some relatives still think I went too far by cutting her off. But after everything she's done, lies, harassment, humiliation, I don't see any other option.
First update, 6 months later. I want to thank everyone for the advice and support. It's been a roller coaster, and I don't know how I would have coped without this community. Unfortunately, Linda's behavior got worse. She started spreading lies to our neighbors, claiming we were unfit parents and encouraging them to call Child Protective Services. Some believed her and began giving us dirty looks, while others came to warn us about what she was saying. It was humiliating having our personal lives become neighborhood gossip. One day, Linda came to our house while Mike was at work. She pounded on the door for hours, screaming accusations while I held James inside, terrified and trying to soothe him. I called the police, but she left before they arrived. They filed a report, but said there wasn't much they could do since she was gone. After that, we installed security cameras around the house. The stress began affecting Mike's job performance. His boss pulled him aside, saying he seemed distracted and needed to refocus. Mike explained what was happening, and while his boss was sympathetic, he warned that Mike's career could be at risk if things didn't improve. This added even more financial strain to an already tense situation. My parents came to stay with us to help. They were wonderful with James, giving Mike and me the chance to rest and spend some time together. But Linda hated it. She began spreading rumors that my parents were trying to turn Mike against his real family. She even went so far as to call my dad's workplace, telling them he was an alcoholic and shouldn't be around children. Of course, it was a complete lie, but my father had to face humiliating questions from his boss. Things only got worse when Mike's cousin Amy got married. We weren't invited to the wedding because Linda told the whole family that we didn't want to participate in family events. She claimed we thought we were better than everyone else just because we had a baby. Mike was heartbroken. He and Amy had been close as kids, and he was really looking forward to her big day. At the wedding, Mike's sister Emma tried to defend us. She told everyone the truth about Linda, how she accused me of cheating and even tried to throw me out of my own home. This caused a massive scene at the reception. Some relatives supported us, saying Linda had gone way too far, but others still believed her lies and accused Emma of betraying the family. The argument got so heated that the bride, Amy, ended up in tears. Her new husband was furious and kicked everyone out of the reception early. Later, Amy called Mike in tears, saying her wedding had been ruined by all the family drama. Mike felt awful, even though none of it was his fault. After that disaster, the family split in two. Some cut us off completely, blocked us on social media, and stopped answering our calls.
Others reached out, apologized, and said they believed us. One of our strongest supporters was Uncle Joe, Linda's brother. He admitted he always knew Linda was difficult, but he never imagined she'd go this far. That's when Linda switched tactics. Suddenly, she was all sweetness, sending gifts for James, cards with apologies, even restaurant vouchers for Mike and me so we could have a date night. At first, we were cautious, but deep down, we hoped maybe she had finally realized she was wrong, especially Mike. He desperately wanted to believe his mom had changed. He missed having a normal relationship with her. Against our better judgment, we let Linda back into our lives under strict rules. She could only visit when both of us were home, and she could never be alone with James. At first, things seemed fine. Linda was polite to me and doted on James. She even brought homemade food because she knew Mike loved her cooking. But it was all an act. On her third visit, while Mike stepped into the bathroom, Linda tried to run off with James. Her car was already running in the driveway, and she had packed a bag with his clothes. If my mom hadn't been there to stop her, Linda would have kidnapped our son. We immediately called the police, and this time, Linda was arrested for attempted abduction. Mike was in shock watching his own mother being taken away in handcuffs. He broke down, feeling like he had failed both his mother and his son. Linda spent the night in jail. After that, it seemed like Mike's father finally saw the truth. The next day, he came to our house looking exhausted and broken. He said he was filing for a divorce from Linda and apologized for not believing us sooner. He asked if he could still be part of James's life, promising to respect our boundaries. After a long talk, we agreed, but made it clear that he could never share information with Linda. Mike felt a huge sense of relief. His father had finally opened his eyes, but he was also devastated. His family was falling apart before his eyes. He started seeing a therapist to cope with the guilt and stress, which has been helping a lot. As for me, I went back to work part-time. At first, it was hard leaving James, but it actually helped to focus on something else. My coworkers were incredibly supportive, especially once they learned about all the drama with Linda. My boss even adjusted my schedule so I could be home when Mike's dad came to spend time with James. That made things so much easier. Despite all the chaos, James is thriving. He's growing fast and looking more and more like Mike. Sometimes it's painful to realize he won't have a relationship with his grandmother, but we know it's for the best. We're doing everything we can to surround him with love and positivity. Over this time, we've grown much closer to Emma. She visits often and has become wonderful with James. For Mike, she's been a real source of strength, reminding him of good memories with their mom, but also supporting his decision to keep distance from her. Emma even stood up to Linda directly, telling her she needed professional help and refusing to talk to her until she got it. Linda didn't take that well. Losing control over Emma drove her crazy. She started spreading lies that Emma was using drugs, claiming that was the real reason she supported us. Then she went as far as to plant drugs in Emma's car and called the police. Thankfully, the officers were skeptical of the anonymous tip and didn't press charges, but the experience was terrifying and humiliating for Emma. The rumors still damaged her career. Her boss heard the gossip and, despite no evidence, decided to fire her to avoid potential issues. Emma was crushed. She had worked so hard to earn her position, and now she was unemployed because of her own mother's lies. We offered her a place to stay while she looked for another job, and she accepted. It's a little crowded at home, but we're glad she's here. Mike's father is also trying to make things right. He even offered to pay for family therapy for all of us, including Linda, if she agreed. After a long thought, we decided to try, but only if Linda first committed to getting real help for her behavior. Last week, we had our first session. It was incredibly hard. Linda cried a lot, saying she just wanted her family back. She complained about how lonely she felt after her husband left her. But the therapist was firm, telling her she had to take responsibility for her actions and understand the damage she caused. She didn't like hearing that one bit. She ended up yelling at the therapist, accusing him of being biased, and stormed out of the session. Mike was devastated. It felt like we had taken a huge step backward. After that failed attempt at therapy, some of Mike's aunts and uncles reached out. They said they'd finally learned the truth about what had happened and regretted believing Linda's lies. They asked if they could come meet James. We're still thinking about it. We've been betrayed too many times to let our guard down too easily. We've also started discussing changes to our will. We want to make absolutely sure that if something ever happens to us, Linda could never fight for custody of James. We're considering naming my parents and Emma as guardians. So that's where things stood then. In some ways, things were improving, but the situation was still complicated. Linda kept causing problems, but we'd grown stronger as a couple and as a family. We're moving forward step by step, though at times it still feels like we're stumbling in the dark. Thank you to everyone who listened and supported us.
Second update. 6 months after the last post and a year since my first one, honestly, not much has changed, but I still want to thank everyone for the advice and encouragement. Here's where we're at now. Mike is having trouble at work. His company is restructuring and layoffs are coming. There's a real chance Mike could lose his job, and we're both very anxious about it. We're trying to save as much as we can in case the worst happens, but that's difficult after spending so much on lawyers because of Linda. Somehow, Linda found out about the situation. We suspect one of Mike's co-workers tipped her off. As soon as she heard, she started bombarding us with calls and messages, insisting she wanted to help financially if Mike lost his job. We know it's just her way of trying to wedge herself back into our lives, so we ignored her. Then she started showing up at Mike's workplace, demanding to talk about family matters. She came so often that Mike's boss finally told her to stop coming by, but it left a bad impression, and now Mike is worried it might affect his chances of keeping his job. All this stress is affecting James, too. He's been having nightmares and doesn't sleep well. He gets very upset when we leave him with the babysitter, crying and clinging to us. On top of that, there are new legal issues. Linda somehow found out that we're planning to update our will to make sure she could never get custody of James. She went ballistic, threatening to sue us if we made the changes. She's been telling people that we've lost our minds from stress and can't make rational decisions. Our lawyer reassured us that she doesn't have a legal leg to stand on, but we're still anxious. Mike's dad is trying to help as much as he can, but he's drowning in his own problems. The divorce with Linda is ugly. She's spreading lies about him and trying to take a huge chunk of his retirement savings. We want to support him, but our finances are stretched so thin already. That's the reality. We're holding on, but things are still very hard. Edit. A lot of people have asked why we're struggling financially if I once mentioned that Mike's family was wealthy. To clarify, his parents are wealthy. That doesn't mean Mike has access to their money. Third update. A year after the second update, and 2 years since my very first post, I finally remembered the password to this account. It's been a year since I wrote anything. So much has happened. Mike ended up losing his job. The company laid off a large group of employees, and he was one of them. It was a crushing blow. We had some savings, but after spending so much on legal fees because of Linda, it wasn't nearly enough. I started picking up extra shifts at the hospital, but even that barely kept us afloat. Linda, of course, saw this as another opening to try to force her way back into our lives. She called and messaged constantly, offering money and saying she could save us if we just let her back in. We ignored her, but she escalated. One day she even showed up at our door with a check and tried to push her way inside. Mike slammed the door in her face. I was so proud of him for standing firm, but Linda didn't stop there. She started spreading rumors that we were unable to care for James financially. She even called Child Protective Services, claiming we couldn't afford to feed him. We had to go through an inspection. Thankfully, the caseworker quickly saw James was perfectly fine, but the experience was humiliating and terrifying. Mike's dad stepped in to help. He offered us some money, and though we hated to take it, we were desperate. It wasn't easy knowing he was also struggling through his messy divorce, with Linda demanding half of everything, including his retirement savings. She deliberately dragged out the court process to make it as expensive and miserable as possible. Then things got even worse. Somehow Linda got hold of Mike's resume and started sending it out to companies pretending to be him. She even created fake email accounts in his name. Employers started calling Mike about interviews he knew nothing about. It was a nightmare. We had to spend hours explaining to HR departments that it wasn't him. Some companies assumed he was unreliable and blacklisted him. His job search became 10 times harder. Through all this, Emma has been our rock. She's helped with James, supported Mike in his job hunt, and stood up for us against the rest of the family. But it's taken a toll on her too. She was exhausted, anxious, and eventually started taking medication for anxiety just to cope. We hated seeing her carry so much of our burden. Just when we thought things couldn't get worse, Linda launched a smear campaign on social media. She created a Facebook page called Justice for Grandma, thankfully it's been taken down now, where she posted nonstop lies about us. She claimed we were abusive parents, that we were alienating James from her, that Mike was an alcoholic, which he's not, and that I was cheating on him with his boss, which Mike doesn't even have a boss right now. Some of Mike's relatives actually believed her. One of Mike's aunts started leaving nasty comments on my posts. His cousin even confronted Mike in the middle of a grocery store, screaming that he'd betrayed the family. We've had to black dozens of relatives. It feels like we're losing everyone who used to support us. But the worst was still to come. One day, we got a call from James's daycare. They told us that Linda had shown up there, claiming she had the right to take James with her. Thankfully, the staff were aware of the situation and refused to hand him over. But the whole thing terrified us. We rushed to pull James out of that daycare and had to start searching for a new one. That turned into a nightmare, especially given our financial situation. After that incident, we realized we had no choice but to take legal action. We filed a restraining order against Linda. The court hearing was awful. Linda put on the performance of her life, acting like a heartbroken, pitiful grandmother. She cried, saying she only wanted to see her grandson, but our lawyer presented all the evidence of her stalking and the attempted abduction. The judge granted the order. We thought maybe it would end there, but Linda just became more cunning. She began pulling in her enablers again, like she always did.
Meanwhile, Mike was still unable to land a proper job. His reputation had been damaged badly because of the fake resumes Linda had sent out under his name. The best he could find was part-time work at a local hardware store. It barely covered anything. I kept picking up extra shifts at the hospital, but with legal bills piling up, we were just scraping by. Last month, James got seriously sick. He spiked a high fever and started vomiting, and we had to rush him to the ER. The whole time, I was terrified Linda would somehow find out and show up at the hospital. Luckily, that didn't happen, but the fear was real. And the medical bills hit us hard, almost more than we can handle. On top of that, Mike's father's health suddenly declined. The stress from the divorce and everything involving Linda took its toll. Just last week, he had a mild heart attack. He's stable now, but it shook us deeply. Mike blames himself, though I keep telling him it's not his fault. Still, I can see how heavily it weighs on him. We're doing our best to support his dad, but it's tough when we're barely holding ourselves together. Emma has moved in with her father to help him recover, which means she spends less time with us and James. That's made everything harder. Of course, Linda is exploiting his health issues to play the victim. She's posting on Facebook that she deserves to be let in to see her dying husband. He's not dying, but she paints us as cruel for keeping our way. Some people believe her, and we keep getting nasty messages. We had to change our phone numbers again. No matter how many times we block her, she always finds some way to reach us. It's exhausting constantly updating contact info for James' daycare, our jobs, and our friends. But we do it for peace of mind. So yes, we're still fighting, still suffering, but also learning to heal. Linda hasn't stopped causing problems, but we're handling them better than before. As a couple and as a family, we've become stronger than ever. Our focus is on our little family, on healing, and on building a happy life despite everything. Update: Mike finally got a good job offer.
It's not in his old field, but it's full-time with benefits, which would be a huge relief for us. He has an interview next week. We're trying not to get our hopes up too much, but it's hard not to. This job could completely change our situation. Update 4. Wow, I'm overwhelmed by the kindness and support we've received after my last post. So many of you left comments or sent private messages, sharing advice, similar experiences, or just words of encouragement. It means more than I can express. I read every message, even if I couldn't reply to all. Your support has been a light in some of the darkest times. Some even offered financial help or job leads from Mike. We didn't accept any money, but your generosity touched us deeply. Now for the news. Mike got the job. It's not his old career, but it's a stable position with solid benefits. The pay is lower than what he used to make, but it's enough to keep us afloat. We're just so relieved to finally have steady income again. Mike actually enjoys the work too, which is such a blessing. Unfortunately, Linda hasn't given up. She's gotten more subtle, but her attacks continue. We found out she's been mailing anonymous letters to our neighbors, accusing us of being bad parents and saying we need to be watched. Thankfully, several neighbors told us about it, and most already know what's really going on. Still, it's awful living with that kind of shadow over us. Mike's dad is doing better health-wise, though the divorce with Linda drags on endlessly. Emma finally landed a new job and moved out, but she still visits often to help with James. We've also made a big decision. We're moving to a new city, about 3 hours away. I know I once said we wouldn't do that, but we never imagined things would escalate this far. And after Mike lost his old job, the idea didn't seem so impossible. Mike can transfer, and I already found an opening at a local hospital. It's scary, but we feel like we need a fresh start, far from Linda's reach. We're not telling anyone in Mike's family where we're going, except Emma and his dad. And we filed a permanent restraining order against Linda, one that will follow us to the new address. Maybe it's not the storybook ending some people hoped for, but this is reality. Most likely, this will be my final update. To everyone who followed our story, sent positive thoughts, and offered support, thank you from the bottom of my heart. You helped us stay strong when we felt we had nothing left. Edit. Many have asked if we're still in touch with Mike's dad and Emma. Yes, absolutely. They're the only ones who know where we're moving, and we plan for them to visit once we're settled. Mike's dad is even talking about moving in with us after his divorce is finalized, once he retires. Emma's planning to help with the move too. We couldn't be more grateful for their love and support.
I stopped a kidnapping while delivering pizza. I work as a pizza delivery driver, and one night turned into one of the strangest and most intense experiences of my life. It was a crazy shift, non-stop orders, driving all over the city without a single real break. I had been drinking water all evening because of the heat, and of course, I didn't make time to use the restroom. By the time I got close to my next delivery, the urge hit me like a truck. Luckily, I was nearly at the customer's address. I thought I'd drop the pizza off quickly, then deal with the problem. But when I pulled up, things immediately felt wrong. I'd been to that neighborhood before, even that house, but this time all the windows were dark, not even the glow of a TV inside. The entire street was eerily quiet. This was a college area, so sure, not many students were around in July, but still, somebody had ordered this pizza. I wasn't about to step out of the car and walk up to a pitch-black house. It was around 9:30 p.m., still hot outside, even though the sun had set hours ago. My car's AC barely worked, and the pizza boxes weren't helping. I called the number on the order. At first, all I heard was heavy, uneven breathing, then a shaky, "Hello?" I tried to keep it professional. "Hey, I'm outside with your pizza, but it doesn't look like anyone's home." The voice gasped, I'm not there. Not yet." Annoyed, and very distracted by my full bladder, I snapped back harsher than I should have. "Well, if you're not here, I'll have to cancel the order. You were supposed to pay cash. Next time, plan better." Almost immediately, I regretted it. The voice grew clearer. It was a young woman, maybe in her early 20s. Out of breath, she explained, "Oh my God, I was running home. I almost didn't hear you. I just switched off my AirPods. Is this better? I lost track of time at work, but I knew you'd be coming, so I'm literally sprinting back right now. Please, please don't leave. I'm starving and I don't have a car. Just 5 minutes, I promise. Hearing her voice jogged my memory. I had delivered here before, and she was always polite. Now I felt like a jerk for barking at her. I told her it was fine, that I'd wait, and hung up. But the bathroom situation was reaching emergency levels. No trees, no hidden corners. And like an idiot, I had tossed out an empty bottle earlier. The only option was the row of bushes by her front walkway. No lights outside, no one around, my car parked across the street, and thankfully, my job didn't require a uniform. I figured I'd be quick and no one would notice. I hurried to the thickest bush right near the front door, unzipped, and finally started to relieve myself. But almost immediately, I realized something was off. The sound wasn't right. It wasn't hitting dirt. It was solid. Before I could process it, a muffled male voice barked, "What the hell?" And a man suddenly burst out of the bush. He ran past me, wiping himself off. I must have hit him directly. My eyes adjusted enough to make out his shape, build, and clothes, but he disappeared before I could react. A minute later, I heard the screech of tires down the street. That's when it clicked. That girl had said she was running home, alone, at night, and some guy had been hiding in her bushes by the door. If I hadn't been desperate enough to relieve myself right there, I don't even want to think what might have happened. I was so stunned that I didn't even zip up. I just stood there, frozen, trying to process what the hell had just happened. The reality of it was so terrifying that my brain refused to accept it, desperately searching for some logical explanation that would make it all seem normal. I wondered maybe the bushes led to a backyard and only looked like they were up against the house. Maybe they covered an open basement window or something. But then that voice in my head screamed, "Dude, that guy was wearing a hoodie in 90-degree Fahrenheit. That is not normal. He's bad news. You're in real danger." The thought that I'd been just a couple of steps away from some man hiding in the bushes outside a young woman's home at night sent a chill down my spine. My fight-or-flight response completely broke down because instead of running, my dumb brain decided to do the absolute worst thing possible. I walked closer to investigate. There had to be a reasonable explanation, right? Some non-creepy reason for a guy in a hoodie to be crouched in the dark shrubs? I circled around, turned on my phone flashlight, and aimed it behind the bushes. But if something looks scary in the dark, trust me, shining a beam of light on it can make it 100 times worse. That's when I saw it. A bag. It was an old, beat-up drawstring backpack, a little damp from, well, yeah, I'd accidentally splashed it. Still in a fog of shock, I reached for it, thinking, okay, maybe this explains it. Maybe he's homeless. Maybe he was just resting here. But when I opened the bag, reality hit me like a truck. Inside were a sharp hunting knife, a roll of duct tape, and a bottle of pills. At that moment, every illusion I'd been clinging to shattered. My body flipped into full survival mode. Adrenaline and instinct kicked in like never before. Gone was the frozen, confused idiot. I became laser-focused on one single goal: get to the car. I dropped the bag like it was on fire, bolted across the street, jumped into my car, and floored it before the door had even shut. I didn't stop until I hit a red light several blocks away. Only then did I pull over in the lot of a 24-hour pharmacy, shaking uncontrollably, trying to catch my breath. When I finally calmed down enough to think clearly, the first question hit me. Do I call the cops first, or the girl who lives there? I mulled it over for what felt like 10 seconds, but when I glanced at the clock, an entire hour had passed. My brain was still scrambled. Eventually, I told myself, all right, I'm safe in my locked car with the engine running. If anything goes down, I can drive away. But she might not know what's waiting for her. So I started dialing her number. Then a horrifying thought stopped me cold. What if there is no girl? Sure, I was 90% sure I'd delivered here before, but what if I was mistaken? What if the girl on the phone was just bait, a setup to lure me into a trap? Every pizza delivery driver alive has heard of the evil genius case. I replayed the phone call in my head. She'd been panting, said she wasn't home, begged me not to leave. The whole thing was weird, way too weird. Nope, can't risk it. Call the cops first. So I dialed 911. The operator was calm, professional, thank God, because by then I was completely falling apart. I kept rambling, tripping over my words, trying to explain 3 different points at once. You have to get there before the girl arrives. He wasn't waiting for me, he was waiting for her. But then again, maybe she doesn't even exist. But I did talk to someone on the phone, so if she is real, you need to find her because she has no idea what's happening. And listen, I only checked part of the bushes. There could be more than one of them. Oh, and you'll know the guy when you see him because, I peed all over him. Not on purpose, just... Long story. Finally, the dispatcher told me to stop talking and just stay on the line. And then, her number popped up on my phone. Incoming call. I couldn't answer without disconnecting 911, so I ignored it. Seconds later, a text came through. Hey, I'm here, but I don't see you. I blurted it out to the operator, and they said the officers were just a couple of minutes away from the address. But my stomach twisted with guilt. Rationally, I knew the odds of her being some kind of scammer were tiny. Much more likely, she was a real girl walking straight into a nightmare. I unmuted the line and said, I'm going back. I can't just sit here. They definitely didn't like that answer, but I had already turned the car around. My heart was pounding out of my chest, and the whole way I was muttering under my breath, shh, fuck, fuck, fuck. And then I saw her. I overheard my girlfriend mercilessly mocking me in front of her best friend, and it was brutal. My girlfriend's name is Jenna. She's 28, and we've been together for just over 2 years. I'm 33, a veterinarian, and we first met at my clinic. She had just moved to the city and brought her dog in for an ear infection. We started talking, and what was supposed to be a 15-minute appointment turned into an hour-long conversation. I had never been so captivated by a woman before. I used to live a typical bachelor lifestyle, thinking I'd probably stay single forever. My life, full of fleeting, casual encounters, was becoming increasingly dull and empty. Jenna is charismatic, with a large circle of friends, and her best friend is a guy named Dylan, whom she's known for years. I trust Jenna, but I'd be lying if I said their friendship didn't bother me. I'm not angry with her over it, and she assured me they've been lifelong friends with no romantic involvement. I'm confident enough in myself to accept their friendship, and even tried to get along with Dylan. He visited our city 3 times. He's a good guy, but it seemed like he didn't particularly like me. Jenna says he's just protective of her, but I think it's more jealousy than actual protection. Jenna had just finished graduate school this spring and was struggling to find work. We've been living together for a year, and I understand she couldn't yet contribute to rent or other expenses. I'm financially stable, so that wasn't an issue, but I didn't want my support to become an excuse for her to avoid seeking employment. I believe everyone needs financial independence, so I made it clear she should start paying half of the expenses once she got a job. On Monday, she messaged me that she had landed a job she really wanted after a tough interview. I was so proud of her that I decided to leave work early without telling her. I bought her favorite alcohol, picked up her favorite Chinese food, and a few weeks ago, I had bought her a necklace she loved in a shop. It had a small shark pendant, and she's obsessed with anything shark-related. I hid it in the basement, planning to surprise her later when she had forgotten about it. When I got home, I went through the side entrance to the basement to grab the necklace. As I climbed the stairs and opened the door, I overheard Jenna on the phone. Normally, I wouldn't eavesdrop, but she was laughing until she cried. It sounded so sweet that I decided to wait until she finished the call to surprise her. She was talking to Dylan, which wasn't unusual. They spoke at least once a week. But then I caught what she was laughing about. It took me a few moments to realize she was mocking our intimate life. She said something like, "No, he doesn't even come close to my ex. My ex was at least 8 centimeters bigger. Every time I eat a tiny carrot, I feel sorry for him. It must be traumatizing to be bitten by the same size. It would almost be cute if it weren't so terrible. He has a great body until he takes off his boxers." There was a lot of laughter. Look, I don't care what strangers online think about my size. but what she was laughing at wasn't even true, which made it even more painful. I don't know about her ex, maybe he was huge, but I'm average, plain and simple. Not exceptional, but not a joke either. I've never felt insecure about it. Hearing my girlfriend discuss me with her friend, given my existing doubts about their relationship, was beyond hurtful. She also mocked me for being handsome, but not particularly smart. I'm actually well educated, so that didn't bother me. I know I'm intelligent, good-looking, and smart, with average equipment. After hearing this, I just left. Did I throw the flowers out of my car window? Yes. Did I cry in the parking lot? Yes. I think she either heard the basement door close or saw me drive off, because she quickly started texting me, asking when I'd be back. This happened on Monday, and I haven't brought it up with her since. I'm still processing it. It's painfully awkward, but damn it, I love her. I know I need to talk to her about it, but I don't know how. Any advice on how to start that conversation? I'm deeply hurt and not sure I can forgive her. I also want to add that I'm definitely planning to break up with Jenna. Today, I met 3 friends for a beer and told them what happened. Their advice matched yours. Break up and do it fast. I called my mom and told her everything too. Yes, I told her everything, even though it was embarrassing. We've always been very close, and I wanted to explain everything to her. I had never seen her so angry before. She knew that I had bought a ring for Jenna. I'll post an update once everything is settled, probably tomorrow. Emotionally, I'll be pretty shaken. Once again, thank you to everyone for the comments and support messages. I never expected so many people to take my side. Update. I finally gathered the courage and ended things with Jenna Thursday evening. Honestly, those were some of the most intense few days of my life. From Jenna's perspective, things got pretty messy. Apologies for the long post, but a lot happened. Following advice from friends, my mom, my brother, and many of you, I decided to talk to her in a public place. My reasoning was simple. Someone capable of such cruelty and dishonesty could easily twist the story, claiming I was abusive or any other nonsense. I wanted to believe she wouldn't do that, but after everything, better safe than sorry. I initially considered just packing her things and breaking up without explanation, but after 2 years together, I felt it was better to talk things through calmly and listen to her side, if she had one, even if it wouldn't change my decision to end things. I took her to a wine bar downtown that has small private booths with curtains. Since Monday, Jenna had been acting like an angel, which could mean 3 things. She felt guilty for her cruel behavior, she thought I might overhear her, or she simply noticed my distance and didn't understand why. She dressed up nicely, and I have to admit, she looked incredible despite everything. Jenna was also very affectionate and kept dropping suggestive comments about what she wanted to do with me later, usually my cute little baby carrot. Normally I'd laugh and enjoy it, but given the circumstances, it was hard to hear and stay composed. I had rehearsed what I wanted to say many times, so once we sat down and our wine arrived, I started talking. I don't remember every word because adrenaline was off the charts. I began by telling her how deeply I loved her, how she was the only woman with whom I felt such a profound connection, someone I fully opened up to and trusted. I told her she was the only one I had considered marrying, and the reason I went shopping for a ring. I didn't mention that I had already bought it, or that I had imagined us having children in the coming years. She kept interrupting with phrases like, "Oh, how sweet," or telling me how much she loved me. Then I looked her straight in the eyes and asked her bluntly, if she loved me so much, why did she mock me so terribly in front of Dylan? Her expression gave me a certain satisfaction. As expected, Jenna initially denied everything and pretended not to understand what I meant. She claimed Dylan knew how much she loved me and she never made fun of me in their conversations. I simply looked at her and said something like, "Come on, Jenna." Even after I explained that I came home early Monday and overheard everything, she continued to deny it. Her calmness was irritating. I told her we both knew she was lying, and what she said was inexcusable. I couldn't understand why she would say such things, especially since she lied just to laugh at me. She kept pretending I was imagining it. She insisted she loved me so much, was never dissatisfied with our intimate life, and would never complain about my size. She claims she loved me for my intelligence and caring nature. Had I not heard it myself, I might have believed her. She deserves an Oscar for that performance. Some commenters asked if I was sure she was talking about me when discussing her ex and his Kraken. She did mention my name, comparing me to him. I am completely sure she was referring to me and lying straight to my face. I told her I would drive her home so she could gather essential items from the house. My brother and his wife were there too. I wanted witnesses to confirm I let her collect her things without being aggressive. I said I'd pack the rest and leave it outside for her to take at her convenience. Jenna was shocked that I was actually ending things. She begged me to reconsider, but my decision was final. It was hard to hold back tears as she expressed how much she wanted to be with me forever and that she had planned to be the mother of my children. She kept asking what she should do now and where she would sleep. I told her that was no longer my problem and that she had plenty of friends she could stay with until she found a place of her own.
She only needed to take her clothes, toiletries, and a few personal items. Almost all furniture and decor in the house, which she had redone, had been paid for by me. And then the tears began. Jenna started crying, saying she couldn't understand how I could treat her this way. She repeated over and over that she always thought I was a good guy. I told her I am a good guy. That's exactly why I didn't throw her things on the lawn, change the locks, or leave without explanation. And then somehow she managed to twist the knife even deeper. She admitted she didn't know why she had said all those things to Dylan. Maybe it was because with him, she could laugh at things that would otherwise make her cry. Apparently, this included my penis. Normally, I don't stoop to sarcastic remarks, but I told her she was welcome to move back to her hometown and live happily with her ex and his 23-centimeter endowment. Seeing her tears vanish instantly was shocking. Clearly, in her eyes, I was a jerk, terrible with women, a failure, destined to be alone, with a tiny carrot down there. She said she never really loved me, that she saw me more as a friend and stayed to avoid hurting me. Makes sense, I guess. Then she said that if I ever proposed again, she would call me a loser and a jerk. And just in case I didn't understand, she repeated her little carrot comparison. Oh, and apparently I'm doomed to die alone. I told her that dying alone is better than dying in a marriage with a woman who doesn't love or respect me. No joke. Then she just screamed. A long, unbelievably loud scream. Not even words, just pure noise. It was terrifying. After that, she ran out, calling me a disgusting pig. I had already paid the bill and apologized to the waiter for the drama. When I stepped outside, she was just standing there, crying. Even though what she did and said was awful, it still hurt to see her like that. I didn't want to just leave her outside in the cold, so I offered to drive her home so she could gather her things, but she had to stay somewhere else afterward. She agreed. The car ride was silent, incredibly awkward. When we arrived home, my brother and his wife were there. His wife stayed inside while Jenna collected her belongings, and my brother waited with me outside. The process went relatively smoothly. I left her a note explaining that her things were on the porch and she could collect them anytime I was at work. I didn't hear from Jenna all day until it was time to come home from work. She sent a vicious message wishing me every misfortune imaginable. I didn't respond. When I got home, I found my house in complete chaos. I have no idea if she made a copy of the key or somehow knew how to pick locks, but she got inside and destroyed everything. Breakable items were smashed, furniture ripped apart, and the kitchen was ruined. The only good thing she did was lock my 2 dogs in a room, probably to keep them safe from broken glass or spilled food. I have 2 cars, one for daily use and an SUV for work, which I use for house calls or transporting large or exotic animals. Among all this chaos, I remembered that I had given her the keys to the SUV in case of emergencies. She destroyed that too. Inside, flour was scattered and tomato sauce was spilled everywhere. It's just stuff, I know, but the most shocking part was that she could act so childish and destructive after everything we'd shared. Just the weekend before, we'd gone to a show, hung out with friends, played Monopoly, made up our own drinking game, watched Netflix, and even had sex multiple times. And now, my home and car were ruined, and I was left in turmoil. In a fit of anger, I immediately ordered 22-kilogram bags of mini carrots delivered to Jenna at her friend's address. 40 kilograms of tiny carrots, within an hour. That evening, I got plenty of angry and insulting messages from her. Yes, it was petty, but I don't regret it. Aside from the wasted food, hopefully she donates or cooks with them. I blocked Jenna. She's truly cruel, and I know I deserve better. Since Monday, I've reflected a lot on myself as a partner and tried to understand what might have caused her to build up resentment or dissatisfaction toward me. To be completely honest, I work hard, I make time for everyone I love, and I try not to bring stress home. Some days at work are just brutal, and today was one of them. I'll admit it. Jen and I had argued about this before, and I genuinely tried to organize my schedule so I could come home at a reasonable hour and leave the stress of work behind. But anyone who's a vet or knows someone in the field understands that we're always on call for emergencies. Sometimes we have patients that need constant monitoring or overnight care. Taking a day off is possible, but it's complicated. I have an incredible team that can handle most situations, yet even on days off or during vacations, I still get calls or messages. I'm sure there were moments when Jenna felt second to my work, and honestly, I know there were. She told me that herself. I tried to adjust, but there's only so much one can do. As far as I remember, I was never intentionally mean or rude to Jenna. Sure, there were bad days when I was irritated or distant, and we had arguments and disagreements, but nothing toxic or abusive. I really believed we had a strong relationship and that we were both happy. I was happy. Still, it's hard not to question yourself and wonder if I really had disappointed her or neglected her to the point that she felt so unloved that she acted out the way she did. I don't know. What I do know is that regardless of any perceived shortcomings on my part, her words and actions were completely unacceptable. I did not deserve any of it, and that's on her. A quick update, I filed a police report and took photos of the wrecked house, hoping it will help cover at least some of the damages under insurance. Honestly, I don't expect much from the police since I can't prove it was Jenna. And frankly, I don't want to see her again. I just hope the insurance covers the damages and I'll move forward with my life.
The entitled lady at Starbucks. A woman with an inflated ego decided that using mobile orders was unfair and demanded that I wait in line, even though my drink was already paid for and ready. I'm 28. There's a Starbucks conveniently located near my therapist's office, and over the past few months, I've gotten into the habit of grabbing a sugary drink before each session. Don't judge me. I know those 400-calorie whipped cream-topped sugar bombs aren't real coffee, but that overpriced $10 liquid dessert is my small comfort before diving into emotional self-improvement. Yesterday morning, on my way to therapy, I made a rare, smart decision. I ordered ahead through the app to avoid the lunchtime rush. Perfect timing. 10 minutes later, I walked in just as the barista was finishing my pumpkin spice cold brew. She called my name, and I happily stepped forward to grab it. But before I could pick it up, a manicured hand gently landed on my forearm. The hand belonged to a woman who looked about 35, polished, confident, wrapped in a flawless linen suit. Her sleek ponytail, gold jewelry, and designer bag practically scream, "I'm important." She exuded that unmistakable aura of superiority, chin slightly raised, posture perfect, as if she believed the air around her was more refined than everyone else's. For simplicity, let's call her Miss Entitlement. Her smile looked polite, but her tone was sugary sweet and condescending, like a teacher correcting a clueless child. "That's not yours," she said softly. I frowned, confused. I checked the cup. My name was written right there. "Oh, sorry. Do you have the same name? I think this one's mine. What did you order?" She shook her head, the smile tightening. "No, my name's much longer than that. I ordered a hot soy matcha with 2 pumps of vanilla." "Ah, then this definitely isn't yours. This one's a pumpkin spice cold brew. Maybe yours is still coming out. You could ask the barista." I reached for my cup again, but her manicured claws tightened around my arm.
Her mask slipped, and that fake smile cracked. "You didn't say it was mine," she snapped. "I said it's not yours. I saw you walk in and grab the first drink you saw. You can't do that. You need to wait in line like everyone else." It finally clicked. "Oh, I ordered through the app. It's prepaid and ready for pickup. See?" I pulled up my confirmation email on my phone and showed her. "Order placed 12 minutes ago, paid in full." She barely glanced at it before smacking my hand away, hard enough to leave a red mark. "You can't just walk in and take it," she hissed. "I don't care if it's your drink. It's not fair to everyone else who's waiting." I stood there, stunned. Did this stranger seriously just hit me over a Starbucks order? Around us, maybe 8 people were waiting for their drinks, with another dozen still in line. She honestly thought I should wait behind all of them just to satisfy her warped sense of fairness? I locked eyes with the barista, who looked exhausted, the kind of weary look only years of customer service trauma can create. She sighed and approached us cautiously. "Hi, is there a problem here?" Before I could answer, Miss Entitlement jumped in. "Yes, this girl just walked in, grabbed a random drink, and won't wait her turn. Tell her to get back in line." I held up my phone. "That's not true. This is my drink. I ordered it through the app. Here's the confirmation, and the name matches the cup. Look." The barista double-checked my phone, glanced at the label, and nodded. "Yes, ma'am, this order is hers. She paid in advance." The entitled woman's jaw tightened. "I don't care if she paid. I've been waiting here like everyone else. She doesn't get special treatment." The barista's tone stayed calm, but firm. Her order came through the mobile system earlier, so it was prepared in order of receipt. You're welcome to use the app next time to skip the line. But you can't stop other customers from collecting their drinks or use physical force. Please step aside or I'll have to ask you to leave. Miss Entitlement's face flushed crimson. "No, I want my drink and she can wait like everyone else. Make my matcha first. I don't care if hers is done." I sighed. "I'm actually running late for an appointment, so can I just take my drink and go? Also, she hit me. There's a red mark on my arm. Maybe call security?" The barista nodded. "Yeah, I think that's best." Up until that moment, Miss Entitlement hadn't raised her voice. She'd been calmly dripping venom with that infuriatingly patronizing tone, like she thought we'd all eventually come to our senses and realize she was right. But when the barista finally handed me my drink, her composure shattered. Her face twisted with pure rage as she turned on the poor employee. "This is ridiculous. Your system is broken. Do you have any idea who I am? You'll regret this. Get your manager now." And that, my friends, is how I got smacked in the hand by a Starbucks Karen because she doesn't understand how mobile orders work.
I didn't do anything wrong. I paid for my drink, and I'm not going anywhere. I'll sit here and enjoy it. I have every legal right to do so, and there's nothing you can do to stop me. While the demon continued her tantrum, I glanced at the unflappable barista. She blinked heavily, and for a moment I thought she might actually cry. But then I realized this battle-hardened warrior was simply restraining the urge to roll her eyes. She met my gaze and gave a subtle nod toward the door. After years of surviving the front lines of customer service hell, she could handle this herself. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, letting me pass toward the exit. Just as I reached the door, the elegant woman realized her prey was escaping and screeched, "Hey, where do you think you're going? She can't just leave. Someone stop her. I said she has to wait her turn like everyone else." I raised a single finger in her direction and slipped out the back door just as the bell above the entrance jingled. A security guard had arrived. Beelzebub's righteous tirade immediately shifted gears. Now she was shouting that she had every right to be there, that she hadn't done anything wrong, and that she refused to be kicked out. She demanded her money back, a free matcha, and a formal apology right now. Each sentence was punctuated by the sound of her slapping the counter. Her indignant screeching slowly faded behind the closing door as I walked away, holding my well-earned cold brew like a trophy. I like to imagine the guard didn't have to physically throw her out, though honestly, knowing her, she probably regained her composure, lifted her chin, and swept out like an insulted duchess, muttering something about her lawyer. As I sipped that heavenly pumpkin-spiced madness, I pictured a lonely venti soy matcha latte, extra hot, 2 pumps of vanilla, slowly cooling on the counter. And somewhere, a decaffeinated Beelzebub was probably raging in her fancy office. That thought made every sip taste even sweeter. Edit. Wow, I didn't expect so many people that actually read this all the way through. I figured I'd take a minute to answer a few common questions that keep popping up in the comments. Yes, I'm Australian, and yes, this really happened here. About the infamous pumpkin-flavored monstrosity, I fully admit I have the world's worst taste in coffee, but drinking something that tastes like a scented candle has always been a weird little dream of mine. And you know what? Shockingly good. Props to America for that one. To those asking why I didn't stand up for myself, I'm a lover, not a fighter, meaning I literally can't fight. If I tried to punch her, I'd probably hurt my own hand more than her face. Plus, I didn't want to get banned from the only Starbucks I ever go to, or, get charged with assault. Why didn't I call the police? I was already late for therapy, and I didn't want to spend hours giving a statement. She didn't really hit me, more like a slap on the wrist that left a red mark for a while. No bruise, nothing worth reporting. Should I have thrown my drink on her? Absolutely not. I'd rather calmly sip my $9 coffee milkshake in peace. Besides, if I'd made a mess, the poor employees would have had to clean it, not her. Oh, and shout out to the guy who literally made a fake account just to send me a death threat because he didn't like my tone and thinks I'm a stuck-up witch. Honestly, kind of flattering. That's a lot of effort for one hate message. If you're reading this, send me your name and address. I promise I won't forward it to the cops. And finally, to everyone who made it this far, thank you. It's nice knowing someone actually reads this stuff. This was fun to write, but it's now 4 a.m. and I'm about to crash. Let's see what chaos tomorrow brings. Before we move on to the next story, I've got a question for you. What would you do in this situation? Actually, it reminded me of something that happened to me recently. It's kind of similar. I'd ordered a shawarma through an app, got a notification that it was ready, but when I arrived, I had no idea where to pick it up. The girl behind the counter, she was serving someone else, totally silent, and I just stood there, waiting, confused. I finally asked, "Hey, can I pick up my shawarma?" And she just didn't answer. Awkward silence. I waited until she finished with the customer, asked again, and she finally handed it to me. I said, "You could have just said something," and she replied, "Can't you see I'm serving someone?" Like, what? I was new there, didn't know how pickup worked, and she couldn't spare 2 words to clarify? Some people just really hate being mildly helpful. Anyway, what do you think? Was she totally right to ignore me? Or was that just bad customer service? Curious to hear your thoughts, because like in the Starbucks story, sometimes these wait your turn situations aren't as black and white as they seem. The client who demanded my personal number and blamed me for losing his job. I work as an insurance adjuster handling auto claims. One of my recent clients decided that his bad luck was entirely my fault. He filed a claim late in the evening after our office had closed, and I called him first thing the next morning. I had only the information he provided, nothing more. I warned him right away that his car might be considered a total loss, depending on the damage. He immediately exploded, shouting that he didn't want his car written off and that I was not allowed to move it anywhere for inspection. As I started to calmly explain alternative options, he began yelling, insulting me, and demanding that I just issue the payment. If only it were that simple, my job would be a lot easier. I explained that, under his insurance policy, we are required to inspect the vehicle before processing any payout to determine whether it's repairable or totaled. He kept arguing, so I told him I'd end the conversation and try again once he'd calmed down. I hung up and went to a meeting.
Meanwhile, he started spamming our customer service line, calling over and over again, harassing at least 4 different agents, refusing to hang up until I personally answered. I told them I was in a meeting and wouldn't be available for about half an hour. He stayed on the line for several minutes, hung up, then called again. When I finally got the chance to return his call, I suggested we contact his auto repair shop and ask them to send us photos so we could make a preliminary assessment. He snapped that he'd already sent them last night. I explained there were no attachments in his email and that we needed specific photos to properly evaluate the damage. Then he said it was my job to call the shop and request the pictures, which, ironically, was exactly what I had just proposed. After that, he demanded my personal phone number. I told him I don't have a company cell phone. He insisted he needed to reach me over the weekend. I refused. He repeated the demand several times, then demanded to speak with my supervisor. I told him she was aware of the situation and would contact him when available, but that I couldn't share her private number. He ordered me to make her call right now. I reminded him she's my supervisor. I don't control her schedule. When he tried to keep me on the line until his demands were met, I told him there was nothing left to discuss and ended the call. Later, I phoned the repair shop and the employee there was rude as well, claiming I was interfering with a good man's job and wasting their time. I politely asked them to just send me the photos by email so we could move forward, and they promised to do it. My last name is rare and included in my email address, so I spelled it out several times. But 2 hours before the end of the workday, no photos had arrived. I emailed the client to let him know, and he said he'd call the shop himself. 5 minutes before closing, I tried the shop again. No answer, no voicemail option. I sent the client another message saying, "Photos still haven't been received, so your claim will resume processing on Monday." He responded by accusing me of working in a different time zone, saying it was unfair because I had 3 extra hours. I corrected him, it's just 1 hour, and pointed out the shop had the entire day to send the images. Then he announced that since he didn't have rental coverage, he'd lose his job on Monday, and that would be my fault. Right, so his employer is so heartless they'd fire him over missing 1 single day. Maybe he should be talking to a state's labor department instead of me. He then circled back to demanding I just approve the claim, insisting I was deliberately delaying the process to make his life miserable. I wonder what he thinks happens to adjusters who ignore procedure and pay out claims illegally. Spoiler, we don't get cookies. We can actually be fired, fined by the state, or even prosecuted. The company could also sue us for wrongful payout. And if a client knowingly cashes a check for a claim that wasn't valid, they can be charged with insurance fraud. We'll see what happens Monday. My supervisor has been reviewing my notes and listening to call recordings, and I suspect she's preparing for a very fun conversation with him, especially since every abusive call is recorded. Update 1. Nothing major yet, surprisingly. The client's gone silent, which honestly worries me more than constant shouting. My supervisor left him a voicemail yesterday, but he hasn't called back. She told me I did the right thing by switching him to written-only communication, and I don't have to answer his calls anymore. She also said that if he starts making threats, which seems entirely possible, she'll involve corporate security and help me file a report with his local police. Every call is recorded anyway. Today, I spoke with the shop owner about how unprofessional his employee had been on Friday. He admitted that the client had been harassing her non-stop on the phone, apparently because she'd made the mistake of giving her her personal number when he demanded it. Turns out, the owner is an old friend of that client. He freely shared that info, then added they're no longer friends after this repair, especially since that rude employee was his niece. He even said he'd blacklist the client permanently. Finally, I got the photos, detailed and numerous. The damage was actually minor. Clearly, he'd just hit some large metal object on the road that got wedged underneath the car. The shop even sent a photo of the bent part. And yes, you all were right, he had a large aftermarket accessory installed that wasn't covered by his policy. It's a custom roof on his pickup truck, but it wasn't damaged anyway. Even if it had been, we wouldn't cover it. His policy doesn't include custom equipment. I sent everything to our special investigations unit. While they agreed the client's behavior seemed suspicious, there wasn't enough evidence to open a full fraud case. And since it was a single vehicle accident, we're obligated to cover the repair, even if he wasn't entirely honest about what happened. Some states allow denial if a client lies about the cause, but unfortunately, not this one. I emailed him to confirm we'd received the photos and were coordinating with the shop. He never replied.
Total silence. Absolute silence. Either he's truly ashamed of his behavior, which would be the right reaction, or he's like a ticking time bomb, waiting until the end of the week when I'll be swamped with work so he can explode again and tell me how I cost him his job. We'll see. This will probably be my last update, but if anything else happens, I'll post again. Huge thanks to everyone who supported me. You helped me realize I'm not crazy or overly sensitive. And to those who say, it's your job, you're trained to handle this, let me be clear. First, no, nobody trains you to deal with this level of insanity. Second, my job is to fix cars, not to tolerate verbal abuse and unhinged tirades. Let this be a reminder to everyone, be kind to people, especially to the faceless voices on the phone who are just doing their jobs. Second update. Thank you all for the kind messages and support. A few people asked how it all ended, so here's what happened. The silence didn't last long. Turns out the client really was a walking time bomb. The repair shop sent me all the information I needed to finish the preliminary repair estimate. The shop owner explained they'd probably find more damage once they started working and would contact me for updates. He apologized again for his niece's behavior during my first call and said he's no longer friends with that client. Our special investigations team reviewed the case and concluded there wasn't enough evidence to call it fraud, so that was that. I emailed the client asking where he wanted the payment sent, directly to him or to the repair shop. He immediately demanded a call, claiming he disagreed with the estimate. Here's how auto insurance payments actually work. The company first creates a preliminary estimate based on visible damage. An initial payment is issued to start the repair process. The shop and insurer stay in touch. If more hidden damage is discovered, additional payments are made later. Simple enough, right? Not for this client. He started yelling that the shop's estimate was $7,000, but we were only paying $6,500. I explained that we're happy to work with the shop and pay more if new damage is found, but the insurance can only cover verified damage. I also mentioned that we keep policy prices fair by aligning payouts with shop estimates and avoiding unnecessary overpayment. He didn't let me finish. He screamed that I'd cost him his job and now was refusing to pay what the shop demanded. I clarified that no one was refusing payment, it was just the first installment, and I only needed to confirm where to send it. Then I warned him that if he kept talking to me like that, I'd end the call. His response? Of course you will. No hint of reflection, no apology, acting like a spoiled child, though he's almost 40. I tried to continue, but he kept shouting over me, saying disgusting things about me and my family. Finally, I said, "Do you really want to finish that sentence on a recorded line that dozens of people might hear later?" He paused for a second and then said, "I hope your husband rapes you and leaves you." Yes, he really said that. I'd recently gotten married, and IT was in the middle of changing my name in our systems, so some programs showed my maiden name and others my new one, meaning I had to explain it constantly. I'd even explained it to this client earlier, so he knew he was saying that to a newlywed woman. I admit, I lost my professional tone for a moment. I told him, "Sir, throughout this entire process, the only thing preventing your car from being fixed is you. The way you've treated me, my coworkers, and the shop employees is appalling. You should be ashamed of yourself. You haven't said a single kind word to me. Working with you has been an absolute nightmare. Now you're spewing vile comments about my personal life, even after I told you last Friday that it was none of your business when you demanded my personal number? And now you're insulting my husband.
someone you've never met and know nothing about. My husband is a far better man than you'll ever be, even though he's half your age. At least he knows how to treat people with respect, even in tough situations. I genuinely pity your wife if she has to live with someone like you. At least my husband doesn't have to force me to sleep with him. The fact that your mind went there immediately says everything about you. Maybe try fixing your own home before meddling in other people's lives." He cursed at me a few more times, and I ended the call, because honestly, they don't pay me enough to take that kind of abuse. He called customer support again and made another representative cry. I took over the call once more and told him he was now restricted to written communication only. I wouldn't answer his calls again, only emails or messages. Then I hung up. I thought that was the end, but apparently he still had my supervisor's contact info from Monday and called her directly. She phoned me afterward and told me what happened. He claimed I'd accused him of sexually assaulting his wife just because he asked about the estimate I supposedly prepared, even though I don't do estimates at all. That's a different department. He said he only wanted to clarify next steps when I hung up. Thankfully, my manager had already listened to all our recorded calls and didn't believe a word he said. She put him on hold, pulled up the recording, listened again, and then tore into him for the things he said to me. When he tried to justify himself by saying I was rude, she shut him down immediately. She told me I'm one of the top specialists in the department with the highest customer satisfaction ratings. She'd seen me calmly handle incredibly difficult clients, and that he was the first person ever to make me lose my composure. Then she told him that from now on, his account would officially be limited to written communication only, something I had already requested with her earlier. She warned him that if she heard about one more case of him verbally abusing an employee, she'd escalate it as a harassment case. Unfortunately, we can't fire him as a client. He still pays us money, and upper management only cares about revenue, not what we go through. Hopefully, this pushes him to cancel his policy and become someone else's problem. I asked my supervisor if I'd face any disciplinary action for that call. She replied, "What call? I didn't hear any call, and I certainly couldn't delete a recording if it didn't exist," basically covering my back in case he tries to complain further. I sent the repair estimate to the shop with instructions on how to request additional payments if new damage is found. Then the client emailed me again asking me to send the payment directly to him. Apparently, he called the shop afterward and got into a screaming match with them too, because soon after he wrote, "Send me the money, the shop pissed me off." So I did, but made the check payable to both him and the lien holder, meaning he has to get it endorsed by the shop before cashing it. And of course, it's going by regular USPS mail, not express delivery. Finally, I closed the case. Still, I can't shake the feeling that this isn't over yet. If anything else happens, I'll let you know, but thankfully, I'll never have to speak to that man again. Once again, thank you all for the support.
My parents are filming my life. My parents and I travel around the country in an RV. They post our lives online, and I hate them a little more for it every single day. When I was around 7, my parents decided to live in a camper and travel across the US. My dad works remotely, and my mom is a lifestyle blogger. She's not super famous, but popular enough that sometimes people recognize us in public. So, a camera has been pointed at me for as long as I can remember. For privacy reasons, I'm writing this from a throwaway account. I've already had more unwanted attention than most people see in a lifetime, and I'm exhausted from it. I sleep on a tiny bunk bed I outgrew years ago. The top bunk is the only place where I can keep my personal things. I don't even have a room, just a curtain. And honestly, thank God I'm an only child, or I'd have to share even that little bit of space. I was homeschooled most of my life, and when I hit high school, I insisted on switching to an online program. I'm 18 now, and I don't have a single real-life friend. We never stay anywhere longer than a month. I don't have a job either. It's impossible when you never live in one place. I could try online work, but that still wouldn't give me the independence to move out. I've talked to my parents about our lifestyle more times than I can count, but they're so deep in denial they truly believe this nomad life is the best possible way to live. They act like I'm some pet they can drag along on their adventures. I hate traveling. I can't stand the heat, the bugs, or the endless hiking. I'm sick of sleeping in different parking lots every week. I can't wait for the day I can finally escape, away from their sunrise hikes and the ever-present camera shoved in my face. Yes, I've technically seen the whole country, but does that mean I'm not allowed to want a normal life, to go to college, to have friends? It feels like I'm asking for too much. Comments and my thoughts. People often tell me how lucky I am to live this way, but honestly, it's lonely beyond words. Someone once asked if I had any other relatives I could stay with. Sadly, I thought I didn't. My current plan is to find some kind of online work, save as much money as I can, and eventually rent a small apartment. I've also been talking to an online friend about possibly becoming roommates someday to share expenses. College might be my best shot at getting out, even though it's expensive. It would at least be a real step toward freedom and maybe a chance to finally have a life of my own. Still, I'm nervous. Being homeschooled left me far behind academically, and high school was already hard enough. Honestly, I'm just proud I managed to graduate from online school at all, instead of continuing full homeschooling. Someone joked that if I started making content about escaping my hipster parents, I'd probably go viral. And yes, the thought crossed my mind. Not for fame, but to raise awareness about what it's like to have your childhood turned into content. But I decided against it for a few reasons. First, it wouldn't be sustainable. People would lose interest after the story was told. Second, I'd need a stable, safe environment before putting myself out there publicly, and I don't have that yet. But most importantly, my life has already been on display without my consent. The only thing that's ever been truly mine is my privacy, and I don't want to give that up too. First update. Hi again. About a week ago, I posted about my awful experience living in an RV with my parents for nearly 10 years. It hasn't been long since then, but so much has changed. After the post blew up, I received hundreds of messages, people offering advice, sharing resources, and some even offering help in person, a few of which were questionable, to be honest. But most were kind, genuine people who just wanted to help, and I truly appreciate it. To be honest, it was overwhelming and I couldn't respond to everyone. But even if I didn't reply, I read everything. One question that kept coming up was, do you have any relatives you could stay with? I used to think the answer was no. My dad's side is non-existent, and my mom completely cut ties with her family years ago. She never talked about them. I didn't even know if they were alive. All I had was my mom's rare maiden name and her birthplace. Turns out that was enough to start with. It's ironic. I've always kind of hated the internet because I never had a choice in being online. My life was public without my consent. But for once, I'm genuinely grateful it exists. With some effort, I managed to find information about my mom's family, including my grandmother's old Facebook profile. It took a while to work up the courage, but eventually I messaged her. I told her about my mom, about myself, and about my situation. I won't share the details of why my mom cut contact with her family. That's not my story to tell. But my grandmother was shocked to learn she had a granddaughter she never knew existed. She was even more horrified to find out how I'd been raised. Through her, I discovered that I have an aunt and an uncle. My grandmother told them everything, and now I'm in touch with all three of them. They all want to help me get out, and since I'm legally an adult now, it's finally possible. I won't reveal too many details for safety reasons, but I've already arranged to move in with my aunt. She lives in a big city on the West Coast, a place full of opportunities for college and work. And yes, I'm planning to enroll in college soon, which feels surreal but exciting. My uncle has kids of his own, but my aunt lives alone and offered me her spare room for as long as I need it. She even bought my train ticket herself. I already have enough money to make it to the station. It still feels strange to say it out loud, but I'm talking to my family now. Real family. I'm still figuring out how or if I should tell my parents. My mom doesn't even know where her relatives live, so even if I said who I'm going to, she wouldn't know where that is. Some people suggested that if I decide to leave without telling them directly, I should leave a note or a short video explaining that I left willingly, just in case they make it sound like I was taken. That's probably what I'll do. Funny, isn't it? After all those years of being filmed, I might end up recording a video from myself, the only one that actually matters. As for my mom's content, I've been keeping quiet whenever the camera's on. Thankfully, neither of them has noticed anything unusual yet. Before I end this, I want to make one thing clear. Most of the people who reached out were kind and helpful, but if you tried to guess who I am, luckily commenters called them out and they deleted their posts. Some even messaged me privately trying to figure it out. I get the curiosity, I do, but I made this post anonymously for a reason. I've had enough attention to last a lifetime, and I'm done with it. So please, even if you think you figured out who I am, don't share it. Let me keep what's left of my privacy. Long story short, I finally have a plan to leave and a safe place to go. If someone had told me 2 weeks ago that not only would I have a way out, but that I'd reconnect with family I didn't even know existed, I never would have believed them.
Final update. Hi everyone. I'm not planning to post another update for now, but I wanted to calm those who were worried about me. I'm doing fine. Truly, thank you all for your kindness and support. To answer some of the concerns people had, yes, I'm aware I don't really know my mom's side of the family yet, and I promise I'm being careful. I understand why my mom doesn't talk to them. And honestly, after seeing the documents and hearing their side, I believe them. They showed me actual court papers and messages that explained everything. My train isn't today or tomorrow, so before leaving, I'm still keeping in touch with them. They've been genuinely caring and trustworthy so far. My aunt, the one I'll be living with, is incredibly sweet. We already found a few shared interests, and she makes me feel welcome. Oh, and I don't think I mentioned this before. I'm applying to college. For the first time, it feels possible. Hopefully, I'll be living in a dorm, so I won't stay with my aunt for long, just until things settle down. Some people told me not to record a goodbye video for my parents, and you're right. It would only be used for their content. I was angry and hurt when I thought about doing it, but I've realized it's not worth it. Maybe one day I'll talk to them face to face, but not now. Someone gave a really smart piece of advice to contact the local police non-emergency line once I move, just to let them know where I'll be staying and ask for a welfare check after a few weeks. That's actually a brilliant idea. Thank you for that suggestion. Second update. Hi again. It's been some time, and I wanted to share how things turned out. In my previous post, I said I'd gotten in touch with my relatives on my mom's side and might have a place to go. Well, I did it. I'm safe now, away from my parents, and we no longer speak. My aunt is an absolute angel, kind, understanding, and full of warmth. My grandmother and uncle are just as amazing. When I first arrived, my aunt and grandma took me on a mini shopping trip. Clothes, room decor, everything I could possibly need. And yes, I finally have my own room. My uncle introduced me to my cousins. He has a son and a daughter about my age. We've already become good friends. We hang out, laugh, and just live like normal teens. My aunt helps me research nearby colleges, but keeps reminding me not to rush things, that I can take my time, and that her home will always be open to me. She's someone I've grown to deeply admire. The more time we spend together, the more I realize how much we have in common. I'm endlessly grateful for the love and acceptance they've shown me. For the first time in my life, I'm discovering who I really am. I changed my hair color and cut, picked out a new nickname, and that's what I go by now. My cousin helps me with makeup and shares her favorite music. She calls herself a cringe-free pop fan, but honestly, she's awesome. I even made a private Instagram, only 5 followers, and I plan to keep it that way. For once, I feel like a normal teenager. I look in the mirror and genuinely like who I see. I didn't realize how uncomfortable I'd been in my own skin before, always trying to take care of everyone else, but never myself. Now, I'm finally free to breathe, to grow, to just be. I've started seeing a therapist, and she suggested writing this update as a way to close the past chapter of my life, to let go, and to move forward. This will be my last update. I want to live my life, enjoy my future, and keep my personal space. Many people ask me to share more about my childhood or everything that happened, but I'm not ready. This is my story, and I decide what to share. For the first time, I have control over who knows what about me, and I'm not giving that up. I'm truly happy now. I'm safe, I'm making plans, thinking about my future, and discovering who I am beyond the image my parents created. Thank you all for your kindness, advice, and compassion. Goodbye, and thank you for helping me get here.
I nearly lost $900,000 during my divorce, but instead, I destroyed my cheating wife in court with shocking evidence. I work as an elementary school teacher, so my daily routine is very predictable. I have fixed hours at school, and every Tuesday we usually had staff meetings that ended around 6 p.m. That meant I normally got home by 7. My wife, Terry, whom I had been married to for over 30 years, would go to the gym every Tuesday evening. She always came back exhausted, so I usually prepared dinner while she showered and handled the house chores. But one day, my principal surprised us by canceling the meeting. It was only 3:30 p.m., and I thought it would be a great idea to head home early, cook dinner, and maybe catch up on some household tasks. Lately, I'd noticed Terry becoming more distant, and I hoped a candle at dinner might help rekindle some spark between us. Our marriage had been strained by financial troubles, and I could feel her pulling away more and more. She wanted to control everything, and if things didn't go her way, she would become stubborn and irritable. I always thought of myself as patient, but it was starting to wear me down. When I got home, I noticed her car in the garage. That was strange, because she usually took the bus to the gym. I slipped in quietly through the back door. The first thing I saw was her purse sitting on the kitchen counter. Terry was always meticulous about where she placed her things, so this was odd. Then I noticed her workout clothes and a large towel on the floor. Just as confusion set in, I heard noises coming from upstairs. My first thought was that she might not be feeling well, so I cautiously started up the stairs. That's when I stumbled over a pair of men's shoes. Scattered on the steps were pants, a shirt, socks, and worst of all, Terry's lingerie, the kind she only wore for anniversaries or special nights. My blood ran cold. I froze on the stairs, heart pounding, stomach turning. For a moment, I thought I might faint. I sat down, trembling. Then anger began to boil inside me, an emotion I rarely allowed to take control. Years of teaching had given me patience, but this was beyond anything I could manage. I moved quietly toward the bedroom. To reach it, you had to pass through the walk-in closet. The door was cracked open just enough for me to see inside. And there it was, my wife, my partner of 3 decades, the mother of our children, betraying me in our own bed. I pulled out my phone and hit record. I knew I would need proof, not just for myself, but for the storm that was about to follow. Watching it unfold before my eyes was like living through a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. Terry, the woman who claimed to love me, who volunteered at charities, who acted like the perfect wife, was now just another liar. I couldn't watch anymore. I stopped recording, slipped out of the house, and just walked aimlessly. Eventually, I ended up in a park miles away. I sat on a bench, splashed some water on my face, and played the video back. The sound was low, so nearby kids wouldn't hear, but on that screen was the collapse of my marriage, my family, my entire life. And there in the park, I broke down and cried. By the time I got back home, it was around 7 p.m., my usual return time on meeting days. Terry greeted me at the back door with fake concern.
Do you want me to get you something to drink?" Her eyes were full of feigned worry, but I couldn't bring myself to tell her the truth. My voice shook as I muttered, "Not really. I think it's just my stomach. I'm going to take a shower and sleep it off." "All right, but take a bucket in case you throw up. I don't want to ruin the clean sheets," she said casually. That almost broke me. Those clean sheets had already been ruined, stained by betrayal. I replied more firmly, "I'll sleep in the guest room tonight." And that's exactly what I did. For the next few days, I pretended to be unwell. She went on with life as if nothing had happened, while I carried the weight of the recording in my pocket. The evidence that my marriage was nothing but ashes. When Monday came, I finally decided what to do next. I needed answers. Was this just a one-time betrayal, or had it been going on for a while? The next morning, I told the principal that I had to undergo an unexpected medical procedure and wouldn't be able to teach for a few days. A substitute was arranged, which gave me the freedom I needed. On Tuesday, I left home as usual, but parked several streets away, then walked back quietly, cutting through neighbors' yards. I knew all the back routes and moved carefully so no one would notice me. I slipped into our detached garage and changed into casual clothes and soft shoes to keep silent. Then came the waiting. I remembered that the last time I'd come home early, there hadn't been any strange cars parked outside. That meant her lover probably came on foot. I crouched behind the hedge and bushes near our front entrance, hidden but with a clear view of the door. Terry carried on her morning as if everything was normal. Washing dishes, starting the dishwasher, vacuuming, dusting. Around 11:30, she went upstairs. I heard the shower running, followed by the toilet flushing. After about 45 minutes, she came back down and left the front door slightly open, an unspoken invitation for her guest. It didn't take long. Around 12:30, he showed up. I didn't know who he was at first, but I managed to capture about 10 seconds of video on my phone. It showed his side profile and almost a clear shot of his face. He didn't hesitate, he just walked straight into my house. The first words I heard froze me in place. "I hope you're wearing that workout outfit again." "Of course," Terry replied with a giggle. "You always loved when I put it on. Sometimes I think that's what hooked you in the first place." That was all I needed. Their comfort with each other screamed of a long-term affair. They headed upstairs without a care in the world. I returned to the garage, my heart pounding out of my chest. My head was spinning with questions. Who was this man? How long had this been going on? And why hadn't she ever talked to me about anything? What terrified me more was the thought of my health. They hadn't used protection, at least not that I could see. The idea that she might have put me at risk made my stomach churn. I thought back to her years at the gym, the social circle of married women she had joined, and the charity events. Maybe the gym held the answers.
Update 1. Being a teacher came with one big advantage. I had access to printers and other resources. I decided to start by printing still frames from the video I'd taken. Identifying him was now my top priority. On Thursday, when Terry was supposed to go to the gym again, I suggested going with her. I claimed I was thinking about getting a membership myself, especially since school was on break. She immediately grew uncomfortable and tried to talk me out of it. "It's really just a group of wives who chat more than work out," she insisted, but I didn't budge. So that Thursday, I walked into the gym with her. The moment I stepped inside, it felt like a scene from an old Western. Everyone turned to stare at me, whispering among themselves. Terry was visibly on edge, sneaking nervous glances toward the staff area. I tried to distract myself by walking around the facility. It was the usual setup, rows of machines, mirrors on the walls. Near the exit, I noticed a staff board with photos and contact info. At the top was the owner and director, Miss Elizabeth West,
followed by 2 women and 1 man. My blood went cold. The man was him, the lover. Under his photo, Philip Barnes, head of training programs, personal coach. As I memorized his number, I looked back toward the machines. Terry was gone. Panic struck me until I spotted her a few minutes later in a hushed but desperate conversation with none other than Philip. She stood partly hidden behind weight equipment, gesturing for him to leave. Then she quickly returned to her machine as if nothing had happened. She didn't realize I'd seen it all. I sat there burning with rage, trying to keep my composure. When she came back over, she noticed my pale face and asked softly, "Are you okay? Is your blood sugar still low?" "I'm fine now. Are you ready to leave?" Before she could answer, the director's voice echoed through the loudspeaker. "Ladies and gentlemen, the last training session of the day is canceled. Mr. Barnes suddenly felt unwell and had to go home." A wave of disappointment swept through the women in the gym. But I wasn't disappointed. For me, it only confirmed everything. Update 2. It seemed that workouts with Mr. Bonte were a cornerstone for many women at that gym. That alone made me think this needed deeper investigation. When I glanced at Terry, she didn't show much reaction to the announcement of his sudden illness. But I could swear I saw her shoulders relax, as if a huge weight had been lifted. "Let's go," she said quickly, snatching her towel and gym bag from the storage area where everyone left their things during class. We were just stepping out when a woman approached us, someone I didn't immediately recognize. "Hello," she said nervously. "Sorry, I'm new to all this and lost track of time. My son Timothy's here, right?" That wasn't usual. New parents often struggled with pickup procedures. I reassured her I'd get Timothy while colleagues covered the remaining kids. I found him near his classroom, chatting with another student. "Hey Tim, your mom's here. Let's head to the pickup area." He looked puzzled. He was in the last year of elementary school, old enough to not lose track of time. "That's weird," he muttered. "Mom's usually busy with her fitness instructor on Friday afternoons. Back at my old school, she often didn't come until 5:30. The word fitness instructor hit me like a hammer. My heart pounded as I casually asked, "Oh, that's great she takes care of her health. Do you happen to know his name?" "Yeah, it's Bonte or something like that. He works at the local gym but also does private lessons at home." That's who I want to be when I grow up. Mom always seems so happy and relaxed after training with him. We usually order takeout on Fridays because she doesn't have time to cook. I nearly lost my composure. This man wasn't just entangled with my wife, he was messing around with multiple women in town. Back at the car, his mother thanked me warmly for helping. "Not a problem," I said smoothly, "part of the job. By the way, I don't think we've officially met. I'm Gerard D. Kids just call me Mr. D." "Nice to meet you," she replied, shaking my hand. "I'm Mary Jones. I remember seeing you at the gym last Thursday. You were there with your wife, Terry. Sorry she seemed in such a hurry to leave. It looked like Mr. Bonte's absence threw everything off." The moment she said his name, her entire demeanor shifted. She paled, her hands trembled, and she stammered, Well, Mr. D, see you later," before practically fleeing the parking lot. That sealed it. Bonte wasn't just a trainer. He was a serial predator in our community.
Update 3. It was time to think about my future, and in that vision there was no Terry. Rage gave me clarity. I began reviewing all the small but crucial details of our shared life, the sort of things couples often overlook. Who pays which bills? Which insurance company do we use? When are utilities due? From which account do we make automatic payments? I discovered the mortgage had only a small balance left. My retirement account had grown to an impressive $900,000, thanks to mandatory contributions from our teachers' union. Our savings account, intended for an overseas vacation, held about $30,000. That trip was no longer on the table. My priority became draining it before Terry realized I knew about her betrayal.
Quietly, I engineered a series of appliance breakdowns while she wasn't home. I'd unplug a cord, then claim a repairman had come to fix it, paying in cash. In reality, I pocketed the money and repaired it myself. Over time, I gathered nearly $20,000 this way. I also purchased tools and other necessities to prepare for what was coming. Update 4. I always paid cash for everything, showing the receipts to Terry, then secretly returning the items the next day. Dishonest? Absolutely. But honesty and trust had already been gutted from our marriage. Because of her actions, I was becoming a man I never thought I could be. A liar. Her Thursday daytime workouts with Bonte continued, and I no longer bothered even trying to initiate anything intimate with her. We coexisted like roommates. That was it. Quietly, I began boxing up my personal belongings, keeping them stored in the garage where Terry rarely went. Since her car usually sat outside, the garage was basically my territory, and she didn't notice my gradual disappearance. On the rare occasion she did ask about missing items, I told her they'd broken or that I didn't need them anymore. She accepted those answers mostly because many of my things didn't fit her preferred aesthetic anyway. When most of my possessions were gone and the house looked practically unchanged, I realized how much I had already surrendered to Terry's control over the years. I withdrew what I could from my retirement account and bought a small house on the edge of town. It wasn't much, just 2 bedrooms, a tiny yard, and a garage, but it was mine. Close to the school where I worked, and best of all, the mortgage was small enough that half my salary easily covered the payments. No mansion, no luxury, but solid. Amazing what you can find if you're willing to skip the glossy neighborhoods. I moved my belongings in piece by piece. Furniture wasn't a problem. Secondhand shops and donation centers were full of cheap finds. Honestly, the place reflected my own state. Used, but still standing. It was time for everyone to get what they deserved. One afternoon at school pickup, Mary Jones came over to me again. Her son Timothy was playing nearby, but I immediately noticed she looked shaken, as if she had been crying. As a teacher, you get trained to read those signs. "Mr. D, can I talk to you for a minute?" she asked, her voice wavering. "Of course. Just park over there and meet me at the benches." I always joked that those benches near the pickup zone were my office. She parked, then joined me, while Timothy kicked a ball around. She hesitated, then finally began. "I don't know how much you know about what's been happening at the gym." I kept my face steady. "I know Terry, my wife, enjoys it there. Says it keeps her in shape." She bit her lip, clearly wrestling with herself, then blurted, "There are things you need to know." I cut to the chase. "Does this have to do with Philip Bonte?" Her expression hardened instantly. "You have no idea just how much it has to do with that pig." "I can imagine. But go on." Tears welled in her eyes. "He targets women at the gym. Regulars. He watches, waits, and then pounces." I asked how she knew. She looked away, ashamed. "Because I was one of them. Until last month. We met every Friday at 12:30. Her voice faltered as though reliving it.
She confessed how she had believed there could be a future with him. Divorced, lonely, missing intimacy. Bonte had filled a void, until suddenly another woman replaced her. He dropped her cold, with nothing but a half-hearted, "Sorry, can't anymore." She gave a bitter laugh through tears. "I thought I was special. Turns out I was just another notch." I sat stunned. How could she unload this on me, her child's teacher? She must have been truly desperate. Trying to offer some comfort, I murmured, "Relationships aren't always what they seem." Her eyes narrowed, searching my face. Then she whispered, "You already know, don't you? About him and Terry?" I swallowed hard. "Yes, I know." Mary reached for my arm. then please believe me, he'll keep doing this until someone stops him. He doesn't care who he hurts as long as his ego's fed. He even brags about it at bars with his buddies. Her tone sharpened. If you need my help to make him pay, just say the word. That man deserves to be brought down. She called for Timothy and drove off, leaving me in silence. I sat there, mind racing. Oddly, I felt a flicker of relief. Her confession made my plan for revenge seem less like an act of a betrayed husband and more like a moral obligation. Bonte wasn't just wrecking my life. He was a predator preying on countless women. The question now was, how many more? I started piecing together his schedule. The gym was open every day except Mondays, and he seemed to be there constantly. Using the number listed at the gym, I tracked down his address, just 3 blocks from our house. No wonder it was so easy for him to sneak over for sessions with my wife. I told Terry that my doctor had recommended daily evening walks around 5 p.m. Luckily, she showed no interest in joining me. That gave me the perfect cover. Since I knew it wouldn't interfere with her own meetings, everything went smoothly. During my first evening walk, I headed straight to Bonte's address and discovered that he lived in a ground-floor apartment among several similar buildings. His car wasn't there, so I lingered nearby to catch his return. He usually left our house well before 6 p.m., which meant he almost always came back around that time. Sure enough, at exactly 6 p.m., he walked into his apartment. It became a routine, day after day, whenever I was free to go out. On days I had staff meetings and couldn't leave, I assumed he still followed the same pattern. I began to suspect that his evenings at the gym weren't really about exercise, but about meeting different women. To confirm this, I adjusted my schedule, starting my walks earlier and watching his daily movements more closely. Eventually, I decided to take a full week off from work just to investigate. I went to an electronics store and purchased surveillance equipment, a long-range listening device, motion-triggered HD cameras with audio, and an external hard drive for storage. On Monday, after setting everything up, I installed the first camera inside Bonte's apartment. Luckily, his place was small, almost like a studio with a kitchenette and dining space. One camera was enough to cover the entire living area, except the bedroom. Breaking in was shockingly easy. He hid his keys under the doormat. Careless. All I had to do was wait for him to head to the gym, slip inside, place the camera, and leave. From then on, every sound or movement in his apartment was recorded and streamed straight to my laptop, time-stamped and secure. That same evening, I got my first footage, Bonte eating takeout in front of the TV before heading to bed at 9 p.m. The next day, I slipped into the gym through the back entrance after closing time and set up a second camera in a private room where clients were usually assessed. This was the same room Bonte often used for one-on-one sessions. By Wednesday, when Terry went out shopping, I had already installed the third and fourth cameras, one in our bedroom and another in the living room. Reviewing Tuesday's recordings shocked me, though deep down I wasn't surprised. Bonte woke up, went out for breakfast, then came back and made a phone call. "Julie, hey, it's me. He's gone. See you at 12:30. Where what I told you. Don't worry, I'll be careful. No one will see me come over. You said he's out for 3 days? Perfect. I'll come Thursday and Friday, too. We'll talk later. Love you." He hung up with a spring in his step, practically glowing. On Thursday, I set up in the garage with my laptop, waiting. As expected, the camera caught him returning with breakfast again, then calling Terry. She answered. "Good thing my husband left for work. See you at 12:30, like always." That was the breaking point. Later, I asked Mary, Terry's mother, to help me compile a list of all the women Bonte had been involved with in the past. She attacked the task with energy, and within a week, I had names and addresses. To my horror, Terry's name was on that list too. At this point, our house meant nothing to me. It wasn't a home anymore, just a building. Terry noticed the emptiness, but I brushed it off by saying I was reorganizing my things. Meanwhile, I secretly prepared for the end. I met with a divorce attorney, set up new bank accounts and insurance under my name only, moved our vacation savings to my private account, and switched to a new SIM card. I even changed the beneficiaries of my retirement plan to our children. I gathered all the evidence, surveillance footage, phone transcripts, photographs. I placed it all in folders, along with the names and contact details of the women Bonte had been with. I even included the address of a local clinic for STD testing, since most of his affairs were unprotected. On our kitchen table, I left divorce papers, DVDs of their encounters, printed stills, and my wedding ring, cut in half and smeared with grime. Beside it was a note. Terry, this ruined ring is what's left of our marriage. Do not contact me. If you must, do it through the attorney listed in the documents. I've requested a restraining order at the school, so do not come there. Any disturbance will result in immediate police intervention. Our children know the truth, so don't expect to rewrite the story. Then I left. In the weeks that followed, everything fell apart for them. Word of the scandal spread quickly. The gym owner was forced to shut down and leave town. Bonte was later found beaten in an alley downtown. Divorce filings surged in our area, and several houses went up for sale. Terry came home that day, found my farewell package, and fainted on the spot. A neighbor called an ambulance. She later tried to contact me, but I ignored every attempt. Eventually, she even stormed the school, which ended in her arrest. After that, her efforts stopped. Our children didn't hold back. They confronted her openly, disgusted by her betrayal. Thankfully, they had inherited stronger values from me, not her. The divorce went through, and financial matters were settled. Terry had to sell the house and move into a smaller place on the outskirts of town. By then, she was known around the community as the gym slut. Every time she went out, whispers and mocking glances followed. Shame and depression eventually pushed her into psychiatric care. As for me, I kept teaching, rebuilt my life, and now live peacefully in my new home.
My professor hired me as a nude maid. I'm a woman in my early 20s, and my professor is in his 30s. I work for a cleaning service that offers different options, regular cleaning or cleaning while wearing lingerie or completely nude. There's no touching, no sexual contact, and any client who crosses the line is immediately banned. Clients can choose general traits, like hair color, body type, or gender, but they can't pick a specific maid. The agency assigns someone based on availability, and both the maid and client can use fake names. No photos are ever shared, and the system automatically checks for potential conflicts, like if two people work or study at the same place, to avoid exactly the kind of situation that ended up happening to me. A few months ago, I got a message from my company about a nearby client who had requested a maid in lingerie. Apparently, I matched the description. I arrived dressed casually, jeans and a t-shirt, with the lingerie underneath, as required. When the door opened, it was my professor. We both froze. I immediately realized what had happened. I told him that the agency usually screens for overlaps like this, but obviously something had gone wrong. I offered two options. I could stay and do my job professionally, or call the office and send a replacement. Either way, we could just forget this ever happened. He chose the second option. I called my supervisor, explained the situation, and left. The company later told me that due to a software glitch or human error, no one noticed that we were both affiliated with the same university. A few days later, I ran into him on campus. He looked tense and awkward, wouldn't make eye contact, and seemed to avoid me entirely. Later that same day, we bumped into each other again, and it was even more uncomfortable.
We had classes together at the end of the previous academic year, after the cleaning incident, and back then he also acted distant, but I thought it was just because classes were online. Normally, I wouldn't care, but next year I'll have him again for several courses and mandatory one-on-one project meetings. These sessions can't be reassigned to another professor, and they directly affect my final grades. I'm confident I can stay professional, but I'm not sure he can. It's been months, and he still can't even look at me. I'm paying a lot for my education, and if this keeps up, it might impact my grades and opportunities. I have no idea what to do. I can't afford to let my academic record suffer, but confronting him might make things even worse. Update. He reported me. Following some advice I got online, I scheduled a meeting during his office hours to clear the air. I also sent a polite email saying that with the new academic year starting, my final one, I wanted to discuss my thesis topic to make sure he approved it before I began. That's something every student does. But apparently, that simple message was enough to send him into panic mode. The cleaning agency I work for also offers fully clothed maids, so he went to the university administration and claimed that he had hired that service, a standard cleaning, and that when I showed up, I offered to clean nude in exchange for help with my thesis. He said he refused. Obviously, that's a total lie. I provided the university with a recording of my phone call with the agency, which was enough to clear me. Unfortunately, there's no way to access his payment records since the service uses an anonymous billing system, and anything beyond that would require a court case, something I can't afford. Even though I was cleared, the administration said they couldn't place me in any of his classes moving forward because, formally, I was now listed as being involved in a sexual harassment investigation. He must have reported me right after receiving my email because the notice from the Student Affairs Office came less than a week later. I honestly can't understand what was going through his head. Maybe he thought I was planning to report him first and wanted to get ahead of it. But that's absurd. All I did was book an appointment like any other student. Either way, I'm leaving the university. I only had 1 year left before graduation, and I've already applied to transfer to nearby schools. But since this all happened right at the start of the semester, it's 10 times harder to arrange than if it had happened over the summer. The only good thing is, I wasn't expelled or suspended, so I don't have to explain anything to anyone. The university seems willing to quietly let this whole mess fade away. Another professor even agreed to write me a recommendation letter. The cleaning company blacklisted him and plans to share his information with other agencies, so hopefully he won't be able to pull something like this again. I also spoke with a lawyer during a free consultation. I decided not to sue. Best case scenario, if I somehow won, my name would be cleared, but my personal life would become public. My classmates and professors would find out everything, and I'd still be stuck in a university that already showed it would throw me under the bus to protect a coward. Even if I won, my professional reputation would be tarnished in academic circles. So I'm walking away with my dignity, my truth, and the hope that this man never gets the chance to hurt another student again.
They want us to follow a dress code at school? Nope. I'll wear whatever I want. A little background for context. I've never been a fan of dress codes just for the sake of having them. So when I got into a boarding school that didn't require uniforms, I was thrilled. Honestly, I don't even hate dress codes in principle. My problem is always with how people interpret them. For example, if the rules say socks should be black or blue, 99.9% of people will assume it means navy blue. I'm the kind of person who'll show up in sky blue socks just to prove a point. Not to make trouble, but simply to share a sly grin with the handful of people who think, well, it does just say blue. It's my way of reminding the bureaucrats who wrote the rules that they aren't as airtight as they think. As my husband likes to say, I've always been a bit of a pain in the neck. I enjoy showing that either or isn't the only option. I've always dressed boldly, loved unusual combinations of fabrics and colors, and if someone had encouraged me to learn sewing back then, I probably would have become a fashion designer.
But boarding school is hardly a place full of vibrant creativity. Despite being spirited, I was never a troublemaker. My mom used to describe me as a polite, well-behaved kid who could bend rules into a pretzel without ever technically breaking them. She had to word her rules very carefully whenever she left me home alone, but she also had to be cautious not to give me new ideas in the process. If someone presented a rule as unbreakable, I just had to test it. And if they were pushy or smug about it, I'd find the cleverest way possible to prove them wrong. My mom always believed critical thinking was the real key to success in life. She taught me that if you can analyze a problem and figure out a solution, you don't need to have all the answers memorized. You just need to know how to find them. Remember, this was a decade before Google and smartphones, so I don't fault modern parents for having a different mindset. Still, I'd raise my own kids with the same philosophy if I had them. She raised me to believe success comes to people who don't just answer apple when someone asks what that round red thing on the table is. Instead, you pick it up, study its weight and texture, notice the sheen on its wax, memorize its smell, because you never know when someone will ask you to describe the underside of an apple when there isn't one around. And when you grow up thinking that way, turning school dress codes inside out becomes kind of fun. So here's the actual story. At my boarding school, we had 2 dress codes. The first was called the class dress code, and that basically meant we were expected to look like young professionals. Pretty standard stuff: skirts below fingertip length for girls, shirts and ties for boys, and all the usual details. The second set was for downtime, called city dress. That was when we hung out in the student lounge or went off campus. It was more relaxed, but still had enough restrictions to prevent the girls from wearing anything too revealing, or the boys from dressing like slobs in ripped clothes. Now, I had these suede knee-high fringe boots. Actually, I had 2 pairs, one black and one brown. They were the warmest, most comfortable boots I'd ever owned, even before Uggs became a thing. My mom and I had fought over those boots for years, so it was a huge personal victory when she let me bring them to school. One day, a teacher pulled me aside and told me that the faculty had been discussing my boots and decided they didn't fit the class dress code. But I read the rules, I argued. There's nothing in there about boots like these. I know, she admitted, but we've decided they don't fit the image we want. But the color matches, I know. The material's fine too. Suede is allowed. Yes. The rules don't mention height. Riding boots are permitted, right? That's true. So why then? I demanded. I honestly can't tell if I felt more angry or hurt. Probably both. This teacher was someone I respected, someone who had always been kind to me, and I immediately understood why they sent her to talk to me instead of someone else. Because I wasn't the type to throw a tantrum or cause a scene. I was the type to plan my revenge quietly. All right then, I said calmly, and walked away. That night, I studied the dress code rules word for word, line by line. I read through every single sentence of that dress code over and over again. I even said the rules out loud, picked up every item of clothing listed, and examined it like I was some alien who only had this manual and a piece of fabric to figure out why humans wear these things. I had to admit, it was a strict code, but they made 2 big mistakes. First, nowhere did it say where each piece of clothing had to be worn. Second, there was no mention that you even had to look presentable. The rules only specified colors and lengths: skirts below fingertip length, socks above the ankle, sleeves covering elbows, and so on. Shoes had to be in muted tones: black, brown, or other earthy shades, like my fringe boots. But nowhere did it say you couldn't show up in, say, elf shoes. Of course, elf shoes wouldn't exactly scream professional, but still, loophole. I went to bed that night mad as hell, my head buzzing with mischievous ideas. I debated with myself for a long time whether I should even go through with it, but eventually I decided if I still felt the same way in the morning, I'd start phase 1. The next day, I woke up just as annoyed, and on my way to breakfast, I mentally made a list of the biggest clowns in my class. In the cafeteria, I found a couple of them and told them, "You know, the handbook is very specific about how ties must be knotted. Windsor, single, or double. And if it's a bow tie, it has to be tied in the classic way. But nowhere does it say ties have to be worn on the neck. The rule just says they must be properly tied." I suggested that they read it carefully that evening and decide for themselves what to do with that little loophole. The following day, ties were everywhere. On wrists, wrapped around glasses, tied across foreheads, looped around ankles, knees, thighs, even wrapped around fists like someone was stopping a nosebleed. If you could tie a Windsor knot on some body part, one of the boys in our school had done it. I was ridiculously proud of myself. Phase 1 was a total success. The teachers were irritated, of course, though plenty of students found it hilarious, until math class. One boy came in without a visible tie. He was the one who always wore a bow tie. The teacher looked down at him sternly and said, "I know you all decided to play games with ties today. I think we've been patient enough, but you do know the rules say you have to be wearing one." He grinned, looked her in the eye, and replied, "I am wearing one. You just can't see it." The room erupted in laughter. Maybe he did tie it around his ankle under his pants or around his elbow under the blazer. Who knows? But to the rest of us, he instantly became the guy who wore his tie on his junk. By the end of the day, I was considered the legend who had found a loophole, and he was the legend who took it to, well, the most infamous possible place. The very next morning, the school email newsletter had an announcement. The rules had been updated. Ties must now be worn on the neck only. Fun times were officially over. But phase 2, oh, that was the real challenge. I'd been eyeing the most ridiculous pair of boots I'd ever seen at the mall. They were silver, with holographic rainbow circles all over, had a 5-centimeter platform, a 10-centimeter heel, and lace-up fronts that came just above the ankle. Utterly outrageous. I knew there was no way I could get away with them to class, but for city dress, I wanted them so badly. After 9 years of uniforms, I was finally starting to enjoy fashion. I'd been saving money for months and would sneak into that store whenever I could, just to look at them. For a while, I tried to convince myself they were too expensive, but once they banned my favorite suede fringe boots, my desire for those wild rainbow boots only grew stronger. Eventually, I scraped together enough money. It felt like fate. That weekend, I practically skipped to the mall, grinning from ear to ear, only to find they were sold out in my size. I nearly burst into tears, but then, right next to them, I saw the same design in black patent leather. Until that moment, I'd dismissed the black pair as boring, especially compared to the silver ones. But here's the thing. Our dress code had an entire paragraph about patent leather shoes. They were allowed, but only if worn with pants. Why? Because of that absurd old belief that shiny shoes could reflect a girl's underwear if she wore a skirt. So my rainbow boots, absolutely banned. But their black patent leather sisters with silver accents, perfectly legal. Silver detailing was allowed, since shoelace eyelets could be made of metal. And the 5-centimeter platform and 10-centimeter heel, also fine. There wasn't even a height restriction for heels in the dress code. I guess the school assumed no high school girl would willingly spend an entire day in stilettos.
And unlike the shiny rainbow boots, their black patent leather version looked less like party footwear and more like ankle boots a pixie would wear. Funny thing is, I never would have even glanced at those black boots if it weren't for my newly discovered obsession with the dress code. The outfit started with these bright orange polyester pants covered in tiny gray-green amorphous specks, something that vaguely resembled a microscopic giraffe print. The green was barely visible. From a distance, it just looked like some random texture over the orange. The clash between the two colors was so aggressive that the pattern literally seemed to vibrate, making you dizzy and even a little nauseous if you stared too long. By sheer luck, I'd also managed to grab an orange terry sweater in exactly the same shade. The result? From the waist up, I looked like a rejected Sesame Street character, while from the waist down, I resembled a disco-era misfit. Did I mention the pants were slightly flared? So on Monday, I walked into class looking like someone who'd been thrown off the set of Saturday Night Fever. My new platform boots had these heavy wooden heels that clumped so loudly they echoed through the entire building. Suddenly I was towering a good 10 centimeters over everyone else, more noticeable in the hallways, and even rivaling some teachers in terms of sheer presence. I caught a few of them throwing sideways glances at my boots, and I started keeping mental notes on which staff members apparently had it out from my suede knee-highs. It was obvious who found my appearance ridiculous. But I didn't stop there. It turned into a personal mission to curate the most hideous outfits my imagination could come up with. I didn't care how I looked anymore. I just wanted to make sure every piece still technically complied with the dress code. Even the teachers admitted my boots met the written requirements, they just didn't like them. I'd put effort into following their rules, and suddenly it wasn't good enough, simply because my choices weren't to their taste. So fine, if they didn't like my boots, I'd wear ugly boots every single day, forcing them to stare at outfits that nobody in their right mind would find appealing. And what could they do? Tell me daily that my clothes were wrong while failing to explain how? By their own admission, nothing I wore actually broke the rules, and I wasn't about to start breaking them. That's not my style. Living in a dorm had its perks. Girls shared clothes freely, so as long as you were willing to lend your stuff too, you essentially had access to 30 wardrobes, just in our block alone. My own clothes had been carefully coordinated, but once you started mixing them with other people's, the results became gloriously absurd. Like when my roommate's loud neon blouse, which she only ever wore with a black skirt, ended up paired with another girl's skirt in a clashing wild print. I wore it specifically because the colors screamed at each other. Still, not against the rules. Those scandalous slut boots, I only ever paired them with pants. I raided every thrift store, vintage shop, and secondhand place in town. And since our city had no shortage of hippies, the selection was fantastic. I put together 3-piece suits with ties that made me look so boyish that at a parent-teacher meeting, one of the teachers actually asked my mom if I was... Apparently dressing badly meant you were automatically gay. I'd braid my bangs into a thin plait, clip a heavy earring to the end so it dangled, and then swing it back and forth over my desk or book, but only during the lessons of the teachers I suspected of discriminating against my boots. Basically, I did everything I could to annoy them with my appearance. At that infamous parent-teacher conference, they asked my mom to talk to me about my clothes. She blinked and asked if I was breaking any rules. They explained the boot situation. My mom laughed and told them there was nothing they could do. If there's one thing her daughter hated, it was being punished for a rule she didn't know existed. Or worse, one that had never even been written down. If you want to make a new rule right now to stop her, go ahead, Mom said. By tomorrow, she won't be doing this anymore. I promise you won't see those boots again. But the way she'll see it, you've taken away something she liked for no good reason. That's punishment, whether you call it that or not. And when she feels punished unfairly, she punishes back. Simple as that. My advice? Drop it, and spend the summer rewriting your handbook. Otherwise, you'll burn through paper trying to keep up with all the loopholes she's going to find. My daughter lives for finding loopholes. Honestly, I regret giving her so many puzzle books when she was little. Hearing this, the teachers admitted the only real reason they were ignoring my new boots was this. When the teachers saw how I reacted to the suede boots ban, some of them honestly seemed afraid to imagine what I might show up in next if they tried to outlaw the second pair as well. But being the well-behaved student that I actually was, I never wore those suede boots again. And after that, no one ever gave me grief about my outfits. Well, except for one time when my skirt ended up way too short. That one wasn't even intentional. The following year, I didn't return to that school, but for completely unrelated reasons, so I never found out if they rewrote any of their rules. To this day, though, I've kept those black boots. They're still tucked away somewhere, and every time I stumble across them at the bottom of a box, I can't help but smile. I even held onto a t-shirt from that era. It is without exaggeration the single ugliest piece of clothing I own, but I just can't throw it out. Every time I see it in my closet, I start laughing, remembering the whole saga. Somewhere I've even got photos of me in that ridiculous fuzzy orange getup. If I ever dig them out, I'll definitely share them. Back then, I was having the time of my life breaking their so-called dress code, and it felt amazing. So, here's the takeaway.
Whatever problems you're facing, try flipping them inside out. Look at them from a different angle, twist them around, play with them. You never know where the cracks might be hiding. And of course, this is also just another wonderful story about how amazing my mom was. She always had my back. Though if I'm honest, I suspect she was also quietly angry that the teachers hated our boots. Because if the school rules had been clearly written, she could have been wearing them all along. Instead, those awesome boots just sat gathering dust in my locker. I miss you, Mom. Edit. No, I didn't end up becoming a lawyer. Life just went in a different direction. These days I work for myself, building a business in a field I'm genuinely passionate about. I enjoy almost every minute of it. I'm happy, and I'm grateful that I get to love what I do. One last note. This whole story took place in the mid-90s.
Strange things in the mailbox. Nothing unusual had ever happened with my mailbox before. I live alone and rarely talk to my neighbors. At most, we just hold the door open for each other. About 2 months ago, in early May, I went to check my mail, something I usually do a couple of times a week. When I opened the box, there were a few flyers and a single black button inside. I was surprised to see it, but didn't think much of it, figured it ended up there by accident. A week later, I checked again. This time, there was nothing inside except for a small piece of paper with some nonsense scribbled on it, called GL Wed Honest WGE. I had no idea what that could possibly mean. For a while, nothing else happened, and I almost forgot about it. But at the end of June, when I went to get my mail again, I found a few screws inside. That's when I decided someone must be messing with me, just tossing random junk they found on the street into my mailbox. A few days later, another piece of paper appeared. This time, it had my full name written on it. That was the last straw. I went to talk to the building manager, and he said he'd look into it, though honestly, he didn't sound like he cared at all. Yesterday, I found something else, a note with a to-do list. Buy sweet potatoes, feed her, check the mailbox, be quiet, be quiet, be quiet. That was it. I packed a few things and went to stay with my girlfriend for a while. I also sent an email to the building management, hoping to get some answers. Does anyone have any idea what this could mean? Has anyone ever dealt with something like this? It all feels too bizarre and time-consuming to be a simple prank. Edit. I should have mentioned this earlier. The mailboxes can only be opened with a special key. They're all outside in a small shed. I don't know if someone could have picked the lock or slipped something through the slot. As of today, July 23, 2025, I've already contacted the police. When I came back from my girlfriend's place this morning, my apartment door was wide open, even though I'm absolutely sure I locked it. Inside, it was obvious someone had been there. My things, furniture, and papers on the desk looked disturbed, like someone had moved them and then tried to put everything back in place. I couldn't tell if anything was missing, but all my expensive stuff, my monitor, TV, and headphones were still there. I called the police immediately. 2 officers came to take a report. They advised me to stay with my girlfriend while they investigate and told the building manager about what happened. They said they'd probably call me tomorrow to go over everything again and try to figure out what's going on. I have no idea who could have broken into my apartment. I barely know anyone in this city and can't imagine who'd do something like that. But clearly someone has targeted me, and somehow they have access to both my mailbox and my apartment keys. I'm confident the building management will cooperate with the police and review the security footage. I'll update this post if I learn anything new. Thanks to everyone for your comments and attempts to help. Final update. Thank you all for the advice and support. With the help of the police, building management, and everyone who gave suggestions, we finally figured out what was going on. The management reviewed the security camera footage and identified the person who had been entering my apartment. It turned out that the previous tenant somehow kept an extra set of keys, both to the apartment and the mailbox. After management contacted the police, they tracked her down using the forwarding address she had left for her security deposit refund. She actually confessed to everything. It was indeed her who had been leaving the items in my mailbox. The police told me she suffers from serious mental health issues, and all those random notes and lists were the result of her illness. They also explained that she probably saw my name on the letters in the mailbox, which is how she learned who I was. The part that scared me the most was when the officer said she had entered my apartment several times, which means it's entirely possible she was there while I was asleep. That thought alone still gives me chills. I don't plan to post any more updates. I just want to move on and forget this whole thing as quickly as possible. Thank you to everyone who helped. I truly hope none of you ever have to go through something like this.
The lawnmower theft. A guy from a lawn care service stole my lawnmower and disappeared. I occasionally hire local workers through a third-party app to mow my lawn. I've never had any issues, until recently, when I decided to mow it myself and realized the mower was gone. I usually keep it on the back porch. After checking my security footage, I was shocked to see the last guy I'd hired stealing my brand new mower, the one I'd only used twice, and trying to sneak it out through my neighbor's yard. The idiot must have thought my camera had a narrow angle. I reported it to the service, and they confirmed it was theft. They told me I needed to file a police report so they could help track the guy down and recover the mower. Update 1. The company gave me the thief's direct contact. His excuse? He claimed he thought the mower was broken and decided to help me out by removing it as junk, assuming that's why I hired them. Now he says someone stole his trailer with my mower inside it. I'm currently on the phone with the sheriff, filing a report. The sheriff said the amount qualifies as grand theft since it's over $500. He contacted the guy and gave him 24 hours to either return the mower or pay the full cost. Otherwise, it becomes a criminal case and a warrant will be issued for his arrest. Small-town sheriffs don't mess around. I also posted the theft video on the neighborhood app next door. Someone messaged me saying they knew his mom and sister and would reach out to them. A few others even found his Instagram. Update 2. Things are getting wild. Someone shared the next door video on Facebook, and now people who know the guy personally are clowning on him. Apparently, he'd been pretending online to be a successful entrepreneur and self-made influencer, and now everyone's tagging him under the stolen mower post. I honestly didn't want to ruin his life. I just wanted my mower back. But then his mother contacted me, begging me to remove the video because it was hurting his business and reputation. I couldn't help but laugh. I told her exactly what my next steps were and explained that fixing her son's mess wasn't her responsibility. I sent her the invoice so she could forward it to him. He still had 23 hours left. After that, arrest warrant. Then he deleted all his social media accounts. Every tag turned gray. It's 9:47 p.m. now. I'll call him at 7 a.m. to see what he plans to do. Honestly, I doubt this ends well. Update 3. Woke up to 36 missed calls between 1 and 4 a.m. Thank God for Do Not Disturb mode and spam blocking. When I tried calling back, the call went straight to voicemail. Then I tried from my Google Voice number and it went through. So yeah, he blocked my main number. I also spoke to his mom again. She's changed her tune now. Said she's tried reaching him too, but he's ignoring her calls. She finally told me, do what you have to do. He's really about to run from the law over a damned lawnmower. Update 4. Finally reached him through his sister. He said he doesn't have the $579 to replace the mower and asked if I could convince the sheriff to give him 2 weeks to get the money together, which is, by the way, an admission of guilt. I told him to borrow from someone or ask his family because I wasn't dropping the charges. He's got 9 hours left. Tick-tock. Update 5. The sheriff sent a deputy over to inspect the property, take my statement, and collect documents from the app that hired him.
Guess what? The deputy ran a background check, and it turns out the guy already has a criminal record in another county for theft. They're done waiting. The warrant's being issued. I don't feel bad for him at all. He dug his own hole, now he can sit in it. Then out of nowhere, I get a message from him using a new number. I took screenshots and forwarded them to the sheriff. Here's what he wrote. Hey man, it's Dushan. You posted that video of me taking your mower. I didn't mean any harm. I thought it didn't work and tried to help myself. Lots of my clients asked me to take old gear off their hands. Yours didn't even start when I tried it. I'm not paying for something you just left in your yard. This is your fault, not mine. And about that sheriff thing, I've got a great lawyer. God's on my side. You act like it's the end of the world, but I'll rise again. Good luck, bro. Yeah, the dude has completely lost it. I stopped responding altogether and forwarded the messages to his mother and sister. He seriously needs help. Then he sent another text. You think this is a joke, man? I don't care about you or the cops. It's all a game to me. People like you always try to bring down guys like me when we're rising up. You'll never understand my hustle. I live this every day. I could buy 10 lawnmowers if I wanted. Yours was trash anyway. Can't even afford a John Deere like a real man. You're a clown. Always will be. That's probably the last update, unless the sheriff tells me he's been arrested. If that happens, I'll post his mugshot. For now, I just bought a new mower, an electric one I can keep inside the house this time. Thanks to everyone for the support, jokes, and laughs. You honestly helped me stay sane through this mess. Final update. The sheriff called. The arrest warrant is active. If his plates get scanned or he's pulled over, he's done. Police don't have his current address, only his mom's. But I gotta say, the sheriff's office handled this incredibly fast. Not sure if I should tell his mother. Oh, and I treated myself today. Bought a new electric mower with a leaf blower, trimmer, and quick charger. It's quiet, clean, and stays in my garage. A corporate lawyer friend read the service's terms and told me I have a solid case. He's taking it pro bono. He even thinks the company will settle out of court to avoid bad publicity. And get this, someone said the thief is in Texas now. Looks like the guy really ran off over a lawnmower.
My ex-wife is trying to win me back by using our daughters. Doesn't sound too serious at first, right? Yeah, it's what I thought too. But as much as I'd love to tell my ex to go to hell and never see her again, we share 2 daughters and joint custody. So completely cutting her out of my life just isn't possible, not unless I walk away from my kids too, which I'd never do. We got married young, 20 years old, dating for 3 years before that. Our daughters were born during the first year of marriage. After the second birth, my ex had complications that made it difficult for her to get pregnant again. I didn't care. I was just grateful she made it through safely, and that we already had 2 beautiful little girls to love. The marriage lasted 9 years. It ended when I filed for divorce after discovering she cheated. I have 0 tolerance for betrayal. I refuse to make myself miserable for something I didn't cause. Maybe it sounds strange, but my love for her died the exact moment I learned about her affair in detail. So no, this isn't some story about a man who can't let go. I moved on 7 years ago. Hell, I don't even hate her. I just don't care. Whatever happens in her life means nothing to me, unless it directly affects our kids. The problem is, I seem to be the only one who's actually moved on. My ex, her family, and even our daughters keep trying to push us back together, even though I've made it crystal clear that I have absolutely no desire to ever be with her again. Maybe the fact that I stayed single for years after the divorce gave them false hope. But honestly, I just wasn't ready to jump into anything new. My daughters were my top priority. Plus, I had my own emotional mess to sort through after her betrayal, which, thankfully, I managed with help from friends, family, and therapy. My relationship with my daughters is great. We don't fight, we don't yell, and they're not rebellious or dramatic. Everything's been peaceful, except for one issue. They know their mother cheated. She told them herself about 3 years ago. Since then, I think she's been feeding them her version of events.
I've asked her countless times to stop. It doesn't help anyone, least of all the girls. But instead of stopping, she just got sneakier about it. Since the divorce, she hasn't dated anyone, or even tried. I guess she thinks that makes her look noble. But honestly, I find it insulting. She could cheat on me while we were married, but now she's suddenly living like a saint? Whatever. That's her problem, not mine. For years, I could ignore the little comments my daughters made about their mom. How good she looks now, how happy she seems, the photos she just happened to show them where she's clearly dressed up to impress. But lately, things have gotten worse. Why? Because I started seeing someone. Clemence isn't the first woman I've dated since the divorce, but this is by far the most serious relationship I've had since it ended. She's 8 years older than me. We actually knew each other for about 4 years before anything romantic happened. We shared a hobby, became close friends, and eventually realized there was more between us. And yes, I genuinely love her. It even surprised me when I realized it. I honestly thought my ex's betrayal had broken something inside me, that I'd never be able to love again the way I once did. At first, my daughters didn't know much about Clemence. Just like my previous relationships, I kept things private. But eventually, they started coming home earlier than expected and began seeing her around. Nothing inappropriate ever happened, but soon came the sighs, the cold looks, and the questions. What is she doing here? Don't you think it's unfair to Mom? It was like they thought I was dating just to spite their mother. I sat them down for a serious talk, explained everything over and over, but it just didn't sink in. They're still clinging to some childish fantasy where their parents get back together. Clemence, thankfully, is incredibly understanding. She doesn't take it personally and keeps saying, give them time. But honestly, I'm not convinced time will fix this. It hasn't yet, so why would it now? I've run out of ideas. That's why I'm asking for advice. Is there any way, any possible approach to help my daughters finally understand that I will never get back with their mother?
Sounds harmless enough, right? Well, not really. As much as I'd love to tell my ex to get lost and never see her again, we share 2 daughters and have joint custody. So, cutting her out of my life completely isn't an option, unless I'm willing to lose my kids too. We got married young, both 20, after dating for 3 years. Our twin girls were born during the first year of marriage. My ex had some complications after that, which made future pregnancies difficult. At the time, I didn't care about that at all. I was just grateful she survived everything safely, and that we already had 2 beautiful little girls we adored. Our marriage lasted 9 years. It ended when I filed for divorce after discovering she had cheated. I have zero tolerance for that kind of betrayal, and saw no reason to keep suffering for something that wasn't my fault. Some might find it strange, but every ounce of love I had for her died the moment I learned the full story of her affair. So no, this isn't some sad tale about a man who can't move on. I did, 7 years ago. Hell, I don't even hate her anymore. I just couldn't care less what happens in her life as long as it doesn't affect our daughters. The real problem is that I'm the only one who truly moved on. My ex, her family, and even our daughters keep trying to reunite us, despite me being very clear that I have zero interest in ever being with her again. Maybe the fact that I didn't date anyone for years after the divorce gave them false hope. But honestly, I wasn't about to jump into another relationship that fast, especially when I had 2 girls to raise. They were my priority. Eventually, with the help of friends, family, and therapy, I got my mental health back on track. My relationship with my daughters has always been great. No fights, no yelling, no teenage rebellion, yet they're smart, kind, and we've always been close. But there's one big problem. They know their mother cheated on me because she told them about 3 years ago. Since then, I'm pretty sure she's been feeding them a twisted version of events. I've asked her countless times to stop dragging them into our adult mess, but she doesn't listen. She hasn't dated anyone since the divorce, hasn't even slept with anyone apparently. She thinks that makes her look noble. Personally, I find it insulting. When we were married, she was sleeping with someone else, and now she suddenly can live without intimacy for 7 years?
Whatever, that's her problem. For years, I brushed off the occasional mentions of her looks or the photos my daughter showed me where she clearly dressed up just to make an impression. But things changed after I started dating again. My girlfriend Clemens isn't my first relationship since the divorce, but she's definitely the most serious one. She's 8 years younger than me, and we'd known each other for 4 years before we started dating. It grew naturally, from friendship into something deeper. And honestly, I love her. I didn't expect that. I thought my ex's betrayal had broken something inside me, that I'd never be able to love again. Turns out I was wrong. At first, my daughters didn't know much about my relationship with Clemens. Then they started showing up at my house earlier than scheduled, sometimes finding her there. We were never inappropriate, just living our normal lives. But soon came the questions, what is she doing here? Or, that's not fair to Mom. It's like they genuinely believe I'm seeing someone just to hurt their mother. I've had long, honest talks with them, but they just don't seem to get it. They can't let go of the fantasy that their parents might reunite someday. Thankfully, Clemens is understanding. She says the girls just need time, though I'm not sure that will help. It hasn't so far. So yeah, I came online looking for advice. Maybe someone out there knows how to help my daughters finally understand that no matter what happens, I'm never going back to their mother. When I try explaining that you can't be faithful to someone you're no longer with, they just ignore it. I've begged my ex countless times to stop manipulating the girls and keep them out of our adult issues, but she doesn't care. At one point, I even considered going to court to get full custody, but was advised it probably backfired. The truth is, my daughters know why we divorced. They know their mother cheated. I usually don't recommend telling kids something like that, but mine are old enough now. The problem is that their understanding of the story is based entirely on her version, filled with excuses and self-pity. A year ago, I finally tried explaining my side, only to find out she had already told them years before, when they were around 13. They know what she did, but they can't comprehend it emotionally. To them, their mother has always been loving and caring. They can't imagine her cold and distant like she was during the affair. Back then, she completely shut me out. Not just physically, but emotionally. She stopped doing little things. Morning kisses before work, random hugs, shared jokes, all gone. I realized something was off and eventually, with a close friend's help, uncovered the truth. She had been giving all that affection to someone else. I'll never forgive that. My daughters don't understand why, and honestly, I don't want them to. No child should ever have to carry that kind of pain. So when they talk about regret, forgiveness, or getting back together, I just can't relate. Where was all that love when it mattered? Update. It's been a while since my original post. A lot has changed. My daughters actually found that post by accident. I had no idea they were even on that site. One day, I came home from work and found them both in tears. They ran to me, hugged me, and begged me to forgive them. Apparently, they'd read one of my comments and learned the full extent of their mother's affair and how deeply it hurt me back then. We went through a lot of therapy together. Honestly, I never blamed them. They were just kids, manipulated by their mother, who used their love as a weapon. After a few months of family therapy, the psychologist told us we no longer needed weekly sessions, just occasional check-ins. My daughters and I became closer than ever. Their relationship with their mom, though, took a hit, understandably. I told them not to dwell on her mistakes. I've long since made peace with what she did. That's also something we worked through in therapy. I eventually had a serious talk with my ex, made it absolutely clear that the getting back together nonsense needed to stop. Whether she listened or not, I don't know, but at least she stopped bothering the girls with it. Or maybe they've learned to tune her out. Either way, as long as my daughters are okay, I don't care what she's doing. As things settled, Clemens and my daughter started bonding, really bonding. They started talking to her more, even asking her for advice on girl stuff. The first time I saw that, I nearly cried. Not long after, Clemens and the girls surprised me. They organized a private dinner, just the three of us. Then Clemens proposed to me. Yeah,
She beat me to it. I was stunned, but happier than I had been in years. Not just because of her proposal, but because my daughters helped her plan it. We had a small, intimate ceremony with close friends and family, and now we're expecting a baby. My daughters can't wait to become big sisters, and I honestly can't wait to watch them spoil their new sibling rotten.